In the dead of night, the majestic Rapian Empire palace looms, shrouded in an air of mystery. On the table by the window, among fragrant roses, two wine glasses sit, promising a revealing conversation. A young man with a cold stare and bare chest looks on with surprise and suspicion. The golden-haired girl lowers her eyes, feeling despair and hopelessness. She sits on the edge of the bed as the stranger in the dark robe approaches, filling the room with tension. Standing before her isn't just any man, but the emperor himself of the most powerful country on the northern continent, the Rapian Empire. Rapian, in his dark robe, leaning against a column, realizes that their wedding night is upon them. His gaze sharpens, a hint of amusement in his eyes, as he senses she's hiding something, and he can practically hear her cursing this whole situation in her head. Zelda, with her pink eyes, remembers how it all started when she, a simple bathhouse attendant, arrived to become the Empress's substitute. Just 2 days ago, the kingdom of Chitanal was filled with a bright atmosphere, overflowing with flowers and golden light. In the massive room, one of the maids is barking orders, making sure everything's spotless and fresh. Zelda Fontrova, a bathhouse attendant in the kingdom of Chitanal, has been working since dawn, getting everything shipshape for the princess. Zelda, all smiles and rosy cheeks, is hustling to get everything perfect before the VIP arrives, figuring it's better to clean up ahead of time. Her friend tells her Prince Tesla wants her in his office, like, now, which totally throws her for a loop. Zelda's almost done cleaning, but she gets stopped, told she can't blow off a direct order from the prince. Her friend steps up, promising to finish the job, and Zelda agrees to hurry back. On her way, Zelda's wondering what Prince Tesla could possibly want with her so urgently. She figures the prince is up to some kind of weirdness again. And with a small sigh, she keeps moving. Zelda's leaving the room when she's told that Prince Tesla was looking for her on the double. The maids start whispering, wondering why the good prince is always sticking up for this nobody. And one of them admits just looking at her ruins her day. The girl froze against the wall, hearing the conversation behind her, feeling totally awkward and alone. In a swanky office, a silver-haired dude sitting at a desk waves someone in. The prince greets the girl with a smile, saying he's been expecting her. Surrounded by flowers and bling, Prince Tesla Hale of Chitanal Kingdom gives her a kind look. In the grand hall, the prince meets Zelda and tells her about this crazy opportunity. He says, getting all worked up, that he's the only one in the kingdom who cares about her. Out of nowhere, the prince asks Zelda to marry Emperor Rapian. He adds that she'll be like the second most important lady in the empire. Zelda's totally floored, realizing how huge this is, and can't believe what she's hearing. The prince takes her hands, saying her full name, like sealing the deal on this life-changing decision. Tesla kisses Zelda's hand gently, confessing he trusts only her now, and asks her to take the Empress of Rapian's place. An image of Princess Rosilia Hale flashes in her mind, and Zelda's surprised, since the princess was supposed to go instead of her. The prince explains, with a hint of weariness, that Rosilia vanished a week ago. He adds, annoyed, that the princess ran off with some sellsword, chasing freedom and romance, and he's furious about what she did. Zelda thinks they shouldn't have let mercenaries into the palace, and realizes she's the only one who can help in this mess, which is why the prince is begging her so desperately. The story shifts to the distant past, when the continent was whole, but after 3 days and nights of lightning, the land split in two. In the dark abyss, called the Death Gorge, lurks the terrifying Wyvern's Den. The weak kingdom of Chitanal desperately needs the protection of the powerful Rapian Empire and its military might. The young Emperor of Rapian proposes a marriage alliance to Chitanal for the sake of a strong alliance. The prince explains that if they miss out on this marriage, another country will get the offer. But if Zelda agrees, everything will change. Zelda clenches her fist, realizing that she, a simple bathhouse attendant, has to temporarily take the princess's place until she gets back. She worries about the scar on her face, certain the emperor definitely won't like it. Tesla smiles, offering Zelda a deal that's good for her. He promises to give her a magic potion that can remove the scar if she agrees to go in the princess's place as the empress's stand-in. Zelda asks in surprise and hope if that's really possible, and he confirms it. Against a backdrop of flowers, an elegant vial appears, containing the potion that temporarily removes scars. The prince promises he'll keep giving her this potion if she plays the role of Empress's stand-in faithfully until Rosilia returns. He assures her it's a great deal, because the Emperor won't even see her scar, so Zelda doesn't need to sweat it. The girl clutches the collar of her dress in despair, feeling the shadow of danger looming and realizing how powerless she is. In a lavish hall, a silver-haired man calmly asks if she's ready to accept his offer, and the girl hesitantly asks for time to think it over. With the golden light shining and the Emperor's grandeur, he picks up the crown, ready to place it on his future bride's head. The man, with a slight smile, explains that when the real princess returns, everything will sort itself out, and she should get his drift. The girl sadly reflects by the window that Princess Rosilia's beauty and pedigree are unbeatable, since she is the kingdom's top beauty and only treasure. Leaning in close, the man whispers that she shouldn't worry, because rumor has it, Emperor Linnell can't, perform his husbandly duties. The girl anxiously thinks that if the Emperor really has that problem, divorcing the stand-in Empress won't be an issue. She hears a warning that if she suddenly changes her mind about leaving the Empress's position, her scar will reappear immediately. The man smiles, explaining it's not a threat, but a deal. And if she plays her part well until the end, everything will be in her favor. Zelda is surprised to learn that for successfully playing the role, she'll get medicine that can permanently remove the scar. Tesler clarifies that if things go south, the consequences will be obvious, and she needs to understand that. The girl is amazed that a permanent cure exists and thoughtfully realizes the gravity of the offer. Zelda presses her hands to her face, a glimmer of hope in her eyes, wishing she could get rid of this scar amidst all these beautiful flowers. She agrees to the offer, but demands that the silver-haired guy keeps his promise. After getting confirmation, Zelda asks anxiously when she needs to leave, and hears that it has to be right away. Confused, she can't believe this is happening, but the man assures her that he already prepared a carriage, anticipating her agreement. Flustered and lost, Zelda finds herself with her suitcases by the carriage, ready for this unexpected journey. In a lavish hall, dressed in a wedding gown, she realizes with despair that she's now an empress. Zelda sits on the bed in the silent night, mentally cursing what's happening and getting lost in worried thoughts. She flinches when the man speaks to her and looks up, her heart pounding. The Emperor leans in close, reminding her that their wedding night is almost here. Zelda recoils in fear, not believing how fast everything's moving, and a worried question echoes in her head. Rapian smirks, saying she's proving to be a bit more fiery than he anticipated. He leans in close, and she realizes it could look like she's been waiting for this. Zelda looks up, flustered, trying to explain it's not what he thinks. A worried thought flashing through her mind. The man smiles gently, telling her not to rush, promising to fulfill his marital duties tonight. Overcome with embarrassment and anxiety, she realizes this isn't what the prince promised. Zelda's on the bed as Rapian leans over her, and she hopes she can avoid the wedding night because of those rumors about his condition. Her inner fear grows. If this really happens, she doesn't know what to do, and the man admits their attraction is mutually restrained. Rapian clarifies that he's not exactly head over heels for her either. His heart isn't exactly racing. She stares at him, surprised, suddenly realizing he's actually really handsome. Rapian smiles, and Zelda mentally agrees with this discovery. The guy gives her a level look, knowing her staring isn't going to solve anything. He points out they're married now, and if the Empress wants things to work, she's got to put in the effort. She just thinks to herself how he's like a freaking statue come to life. Zelda sighs, thinking she just got here and she's already hitched, and probably not getting out of this easy. Rapian, a little flustered by what he just said, tries to get her attention. The girl, all confused and a little flustered, asks him to repeat himself. Rapian tells her not to look so bummed, like she's about to burst into tears. Zelda just kinda zones out and replies. The guy thinks, annoyed, what's the deal with this whole bowing to the gods thing on the wedding night? He explains that he's not mad at her. He's just got a problem with those priests. Zelda's surprised he cares, and says she expected him to be all cold and distant. She gives a small smile, assuring him she gets it. Just call me whatever you're comfortable with, okay? A calm and trusting vibe settles over the newlyweds in the room. The girl decides to pull herself together and hang in there until Princess Rosilia gets back. Dude's surprised, like, whoa, you're way more chatty than you were last night. He says there's no point in putting it off any longer, and Zelda, totally confused, asks him to repeat that. He turns to her and asks if she believes in the gods. Zelda, caught off guard, echoes his question, not knowing what to say. Just then, The guy notices someone's arrived, and the girl freaks out at what's happening. The man, surprised Zelda didn't know about this important tradition, figures someone should have told her. The girl's stunned, realizing that on their wedding night, the couple has to, demonstrate their bond to the priests. In a totally awkward moment, she's freaking out, asking if this whole thing is really gonna go down with the priests watching. And he's like, yep. Zelda's in shock. She's gotta, do the deed for the first time with an audience. The priests are right outside the door, asking if they can come in. Rapien's all cool, telling them to come on in, while Zelda's panicking, trying to stop him. The guy's trying to calm her down, explaining he's just gonna, make it look good. He tells her to just hang in there, and she nervously agrees. Rapien gives the priests the okay to enter, bracing himself for this whole charade. Behind the curtain, you can see the couple's shadows, and the priests are just watching. The guy explains that the priests will only see their silhouettes, and they'll be gone soon, chanting blessings. Zelda's relieved, realizing they just have to fake it, and gets ready to keep playing along. Rapien, loosening his belt, asks the girl for a hand, building up some serious tension. Zelda, flustered and wary, asks, surprised, exactly what kind of help he needs. The guy leans in close, explaining they got a kiss to fool the priests. She chills out a little, figuring if it's just a kiss, it's not the end of the world. Rapien, getting ready for the ritual, confirms she's cool with it and says, let's get this show on the road. The priests chant their prayers, and Zelda's just praying this ridiculous tradition ends ASAP. She's freaking out and tells him to hold up, cause something weird's going on with her. Rapien, seeing she's getting worked up, tells her to just close her eyes if she's too nervous. Zelda feels a rush of heat all over and wonders why she's suddenly getting so hot and bothered. She wonders if it's the priest spells, but then realizes it started after she got that burn. The guy leans over her, saying she's laying it on a little thick. She's hurting and begging for help, feeling the ritual keep going as he moves in for a kiss. Zelda's totally confused and surprised as something unexpected happens during the kiss. Suddenly, the heat that was all over her body just vanishes, leaving only a soft touch. Like magic, their kiss turns tender and real, filling the room with this special vibe. Rapien, looking flustered, straightens his clothes and says the priests bailed a while ago while they were, occupied. He's trying to figure out what's going on, totally lost about what just changed. The guy tells her to hang tight for a sec while he checks something out, and she just stares at him, waiting for an explanation. Out of nowhere, Rapien kisses her, and she freezes, completely caught off guard. He pulls back, looking puzzled by the weird sensations, and Zelda just watches him, totally bewildered. Zelda looks down, wondering what exactly she wants to test right now. Meanwhile, at Chattanil Royal Palace, they're discussing whether Emperor Lionel will, consummate the marriage. One of them points out the emperor usually doesn't bother with ordinary women, but for a political marriage, he'll probably do his duty. The other guy sarcastically figures the newlyweds are probably cursing him out and wonders if they should have warned the bride about the empire's, wedding night traditions. The silver-haired dude says if they'd warned her, she wouldn't have come willingly, and tells them to shut up and get to the report. Just then, they learn the wyverns are gathering back at Death Gorge, which spells trouble. The guy grabs a glass of wine, realizing it's time to get ready, cause things are kicking off. He thinks with the wyverns back, war's gonna flare up again, which is why this marriage was so damn important. His buddy asks what the next move is, and the guy pauses, thinking. The guy smirks, wondering what to do about Zelda, hinting at more scheming. She's lying on the bed, looking up all flustered, and she's feeling these weird emotions as this guy touches her. His kiss is like a cool breeze, filling everything around her with soft light and flowers. Memories are taking her back to her childhood, when she was constantly suffering from fevers and terrible nightmares after that burn. Every time she was submerged in cold water, she'd start to boil, like a fire was raging inside her. He could usually control everything that happened to him, but in this moment, he was powerless to stop. She's wondering why things are different now, and a glimmer of hope appears in her eyes. Rapien leans over the girl, thinking about how warm she is, like she's bringing him comfort. He admits that he's always lived in an icy cold, and she looks at him with surprise and interest. Their hands intertwine, and he remembers how everything changed the moment he first kissed her. Touching her filled him with the feeling of springtime, and a happy smile appears on his face. Zelda listens to his confession with an embarrassed smile, feeling the trust between them growing. Rapien explains it wasn't her imagination. His body got as hot as a summer day, and she asks, surprised, what he means. They sit together on the bed, discussing how Prince Tesler left out some crucial information. The guy talks about the deception in imperial marriages, and Zelda looks at him, taken aback. Memories flash back to 3 years ago, to the final battle in Death Gorge. The wounded warrior realizes he had to win that battle, no matter what it took. At the critical moment, a mage from the south shows up, controlling wyverns, and the situation goes south fast. Rapian, driven by instinct, knows he has to take out that mage to turn the tide of the battle. In the thick of it, the mage in the black cloak strikes, engulfing his opponent in a sinister purple energy. Rapian says he was caught off guard and hit with a curse, and the girl anxiously asks what it does. He goes quiet, lost in some heavy memories, and you can see the sadness all over his face. Thinking about the curse, he feels his body start to freeze up completely, like he's surrounded by ice. Luckily, his magic kept him from being totally cursed, but now his body runs super cold. But then, when he touches the Empress, a surge of energy sparks between them, like it could change everything. Zelda's stunned to hear about the freeze curse, especially since it's the total opposite of her deal, and a thought starts to form in her mind. She's thinking about how their body temperatures go back to normal when they touch, and that just blows her mind even more. Zelda decides to keep her secret to herself for now, and the guy looks at her knowingly, like they've got a special connection. Rapian notices she's surprised, but his voice is gentle and caring. She admits with a smile that she felt comfortable around him, and she's glad he feels the same way. Rapian confesses that he felt even better than comfortable with her, and their hands meet again in a tender touch. He gently kisses her hand, hoping she enjoyed the evening as much as he did. Zelda replies that her feelings were even better than she could have imagined, and their hands meet in a heartfelt gesture. They decide to go to sleep, knowing that an important and stressful day awaits them. However, despite her fatigue, she can't fall asleep easily, her mind racing with everything that happened. In the silence of the night, he quietly calls out to her, and Zelda, waking up, responds with slight surprise. Lying next to each other, they realize they are truly husband and wife now, and it fills their hearts with a new sense of closeness. Rapian, lying on the pillows among the white flowers, with a slight smile, reminds her that they are now spouses, and no one can deny it. He gently takes her hand, suggesting they stick together without needing anyone's permission, and a special intimacy sparks between them. Zelda, a little flustered, agrees, her heart starting to beat faster as their fingers intertwine. The man feels an incredible warmth, admitting that he hasn't fallen asleep so easily in a long time, even without a magic warming stone. Zelda sighs, relieved. Being near him is so good, so peaceful. His voice is like a lullaby, putting her at ease. She wakes up in the soft morning light, surprised and a little confused, still feeling the warmth of his hand. The Empress wakes up in the morning sun, and a maid appears before her with a greeting. 3 maids in elegant dresses announce that from this day on, they will be her guides and assistants in Rapian Palace. The Empress is surprised by their casualness, thinking that even here, the servants are acting a little too relaxed. She asks the names of her new maids with a light smile, being polite. The eldest of the girls formally begins the introductions, emphasizing her respect. Melanie Hetzros and Pezzolini Asto state their names and origins, completing the introduction. Rosie Adelaide apologizes to the Empress for unintentionally waking her in the morning. The Empress, fixing her hair, suggests they not waste time on introducing her, since everyone already knows who she is. Zelda, with a light smile, reminds the maids that barging into the bedroom without permission is a no-go. The palace is buzzing like a beehive since dawn, and the young Empress watches it all, lost in thought, determined not to be treated like a pushover. A maid in a fancy dress approaches her, addressing the Empress with utmost respect. The Empress, with icy confidence, wants to know why they waltzed in without permission, especially with guards posted outside. Zelda thinks to herself that this breach of protocol is the first thing she needs to straighten out. The maids, a little flustered, explain that they were already picked to serve the Empress, so they figured they had the green light to enter. The Empress points out that they strolled right into her bedroom without so much as a knock. The Empress firmly reminds them that she's the only one who decides who gets to enter her bedroom, leaving the maids feeling awkward. One of the maids, bowing her head, apologizes for their behavior and promises it won't happen again. The tension eases a bit as the maids eagerly offer to whip up some breakfast. and the Empress is taken aback by their eagerness. That blue-haired maid's smirking, saying the Emperor's super picky and only notices the hotties, like implying the Empress isn't all that. The Empress just kinda takes it, thinking about the Emperor's personality in last night's events. His Majesty, Linnell, is known for being a total ice king, cold and detached, like he's surrounded by frozen roses and shadows. The maids are saying the Emperor's only into the Rapian style, and dresses from Chatinal are a big no-no around here. The Empress realizes she's gotta take the maid's help, even though she didn't want to. Because what else can she do? One of the maids is all smiles, saying their help won't be necessary, surprised by the change of plans. The Empress is thinking to herself that she didn't get any cold vibes from the Emperor at all. He seemed different to her. Suddenly, as she's about to head out, the maids freak out and call after her, totally worried about what she's doing. The maids anxiously ask if the Empress is okay, noticing how pale she looks. The Empress smiles and jokes that maybe last night was a little too tiring, but then immediately thinks, nah, that's not it. Zelda's thinking how she always pictured the Emperor surrounded by women, and now she's surprised that's not the case. The Empress says the maids will understand how she feels when they get hitched themselves. She tells everyone to clear out of her room, clutching the fabric of her dress in her hand. The maids remind her that they're her personal attendants now, but the Empress replies that she hasn't agreed to that yet and plans to discuss it with the Emperor. The maids stare at the Empress, tense and confused, hoping she doesn't have any more requests. The Empress, with a gentle smile, asks everyone to leave her room, radiating calm and confidence. Alone at last, she feels exhausted after the morning's craziness and thinks about the difference between Chatunal and Rapion, when suddenly there's a knock at the door. A new maid named Sharon enters the room, introducing herself humbly and announcing that she'll be her personal attendant from now on. Over tea, the Empress thanks Sharon for her help with the wedding preparations, and Sharon replies that she was just doing her duty. Sharon carefully asks if anything happened after the other ladies left, but the Empress, smiling, assures her that everything's fine, and then asks her own question. The maids are gossiping about how they pick servants in the Empire. Turns out the ministry makes the list of candidates. The Empress is thinking, usually picking the maids is her thing, but things are different here. Then she gets a message from the Emperor. The Emperor wants her to have lunch with him in the main palace. She's pretty surprised. The Empress is a little thrown, but says yes. Sharon suggests drawing her a bath. Zelda's grateful, saying the Emperor's looking out for her, knowing she woke up early. Sharon's surprised the water will be cold even in summer, but the Empress calmly asks her to pick out a dress for lunch. The flustered maid explains that, traditionally, noble ladies-in-waiting choose the Empress's dresses. She doesn't dare do it herself. Zelda smiles a little and says she just needs a dress that really suits her. The maid is thrilled to hear the Empress trusts her taste. There's time before lunch, so the Empress decides to look around the palace, starting with the study. They stop her in the hallway, saying she has a visitor requesting an audience. The Empress is surprised, and just then, a stranger walks into the room. In the reception room, bathed in soft light, a man in full dress uniform stands by the window, waiting. He greets Empress Rapian with smooth grace, showing perfect manners and a quiet confidence. Rapian, surrounded by flowers and luxury, realizes that today marks a new chapter for her kingdom and for herself. The head of the Rohine family, who made their fortune in trade, arrives in Rapion as the foreign minister of Chatonil. Turns out this guy's a plant, sent by Prince Tesler, which definitely cranks up the tension. Zelda remembers that the whole trip to Rapion, this dude never even glanced her way, and it kinda stings. The day after the wedding, the guy who acted like she didn't exist suddenly wants to talk to the Empress. Zelda decides to cut to the chase and invites him to sit down in the lavish hall. Holding her teacup steady, the Empress asks if her guest has urgent business with her. The man calmly replies he just wanted to know how her wedding night went, and gets a confident reply that everything's fine. He remarks that maybe the Empress actually wanted to ask something, carefully watching her reaction. The Empress, lost in thought, realizes her companion is trying to feel her out and keeps her cool. In the lavish hall, over tea, they discuss the fate of the missing Princess Rosilia, about whom there's still no news. The man asks with a slight smile how she'd like the search to go. The Empress is surprised by the question, not expecting that kind of response. She's at a loss, trying to figure out exactly what he's getting at. An image of another man flashes through her mind, and she wonders why everything changed so much in a single day. The man watches her with a cryptic smile, noting that she already seems comfortable in her new position. "Don't sweat it, I won't rat you out to Prince Tesla." Zelda thought to herself, with a piercing look, that this guy was just like all the others she'd met. 3 girls in fancy dresses walk together. One wonders about being a temporary empress. The girl with blue hair, looking determined, thinks, "Don't even think about taking me lightly." Even though he's close to Prince Tesla, the guy in the dress uniform doesn't flinch. Someone carefully sets a cup on the table, and the other woman is surprised by the Duke's nonchalance. At a table in a fancy hall, a man and woman are talking carefully, knowing the palace is full of prying eyes, and she remembers where she comes from. The man, looking serious, reminds her that things change when you're wearing the Empress's crown. Zelda, with a cold stare, tells the Duke to watch his mouth. The Duke smirks, surprised she can talk so well. Nobody would have expected that. She's saying she never had a chance to show who she really is, 'cause even on the way here, we were just exchanging glances. He's all intense, asking if she's looking at him the same way now, and you can practically hear the hope in his voice. The maid rolls up with the snacks, all smiles, and asks if Her Imperial Majesty had to wait long. The Empress turns to the maid, relieved and surprised, thinking how perfectly timed her arrival is. The maid says the Emperor wants to know what the Empress is up to, and hands her some sweets. The Empress blushes a little, hearing that her favorite dishes are being made for lunch, ordered by the Emperor himself. He points out that the Emperor's giving her special attention and thinks it's actually pretty sweet. The Duke's watching all this, a little lost in thought, not rushing to say what he's thinking. The Empress gives a small smile, thinking about how everyone knows the Emperor's got his eye on her now, and mentally pats Sharon on the back for being so quick on the uptake. She apologizes to the Duke, realizing she spaced out there for a sec. With a gentle smile, she tries to steer the conversation back on track, asking what they were talking about. The Duke, with a slight smile, admits he was being rude and apologizes. He glances down at his gloves, confessing he's not the best judge of character, but quickly dismisses the thought. The Duke mentions that Prince Tesla was really worried she'd have a hard time, and a warm smile lights up his face. The Empress reacts calmly to what she hears, taking in the information with mild surprise. The servant reminds them they're running out of time to see the chambers, and the Duke prepares to leave. Leaving the drawing room, the Duke comments that the conversation was more pleasant than he expected, and promises to visit more often. The Empress asks with interest how long the Duke plans to stay at the palace. The Duke, with a mysterious smile, muses that nobody knows, not while she's taking her place. Entering the lavishly decorated hall, the Empress mentally reminds herself to stay focused. This young officer's all decked out and ready for his first dinner with the Emperor. Talk about a big moment! Zelda's keeping her eyes down, taking in the Emperor's presence, and totally lost in her own head. She's almost tripping over the word Emperor, like, this is really happening. 3 ladies in fancy dresses stroll into the hall, and the Empress is all kinds of confused about why they're here. The guests greet the Empress with respect, making sure she knows she's top dog. Zelda's a little annoyed, like, ugh, these people again? She's so over this. The Emperor's chilling on his throne behind a table loaded with food, waving someone over to join him. Over dinner, the Emperor asks the Empress what she thinks of her new digs. She says it's fancy, but hints it needs some updates. The Emperor smirks. You want even more fancy? The Empress explains the palace needs to evolve to match her style. Rapian chimes in, saying the palace needs some warmth and love, something only the lady of the house can bring. Zelda smiles, pointing out that love doesn't just come from her, hinting the Emperor could bring some comfort too. The girls watching them chat are surprised and a little flustered, saying it sounds like they're totally flirting. Zelda, looking down shyly, tells him to forget she said anything, feeling a bit embarrassed. The Emperor, holding his glass, promises to visit her more often, catching her off guard with his attention. She nervously replies that she wasn't kidding, trying to hide how thrown she is. One of the girls worriedly remembers how intense things were last night, and says even being busy doesn't stop you from needing a break. Rapian, with a sly grin, admits he'd love to relive last night, making his feelings pretty clear. The Empress is surprised by his boldness, and wonders if he's saying it on purpose, noticing her reaction to the other girls. During lunch, the Emperor asks why the girls are in the dining hall, his hand freezing over his plate. He chuckles, reminding her that he heard the Empress invited them, pressing her to explain. The Emperor's thinking maybe it's time to swap out all the maids in the Empress's chambers. He figures it'd be best if the Empress picked out her own new staff. One of the girls tries to object, but the Emperor cuts her off, wanting some alone time with the Empress for lunch. The Emperor suggests they talk about the new maids later tonight, and right now, just enjoy the meal. The Emperor, with a sly smile, brings up last night and suggests they refuel with some lunch. The Empress listens intently as he admits something's been on his mind. Reflected in his wine glass, he reminds her she said he wasn't her type, and wonders how she could forget that so quickly. The Empress, confused, asks him to repeat that, not getting what he's driving at. She remembers thinking he wasn't even her type, and is totally thrown by what's happening. Rapian, with a gentle smile, reminds her they had this conversation before the wedding. Zelda, surprised, recalls their pre-wedding talk and anxiously asks if the Emperor was really there. A disturbing image flashes through her mind. He might have seen everything, even all her scars. 2 days ago in the Rapian Empire, night fell over the city, and the clatter of hooves echoed through the deserted streets. A young woman in a red cloak, glancing around nervously, arrived at a mysterious place adorned with magical flowers. A man in a dark cloak joined her, and together, they approached the spot Prince Tesler had mentioned. Before them was a humble shop, selling rare medicine despite its unassuming appearance, and the sign read, Mr. Big's Magic Shop. The man remarked that although the shop looks simple outside, a very skilled craftsman works here. Inside, they were greeted by a mysterious masked seller, surrounded by magical items, rumored to have anything you could want. The girl is certain that if a magical potion to remove scars can be created anywhere, it's here. Hope sparks in her heart that getting rid of the scars might actually be possible. I'm going in, she tells her partner, not backing down. The guy just watches her, impressed by her guts. Inside, the owner greets them, ready to hear what they need. The girl puts a pouch of cash on the counter, explaining why she's there. An employee greets them at the door and says, "Come on in, everything's ready." In a hidden room, a masked woman greets Zelda, saying, "We've been expecting you." Zelda nervously takes the fancy potion bottle, ready to take the plunge. "I'll explain everything," she promises, "after I see if this stuff works." Zelda carefully brings the bottle to her lips, hoping to at least fade these scars. They hand her a mirror so she can see the results, and she steels herself to look. The girl stares into the mirror, her heart pounding, totally not believing her eyes. She's blown away to see the scar is completely gone from her face. With relief and pure joy, she confirms there's not a trace left. An empty bottle sits on the table, and she's thinking how crazy easy it was to get rid of those scars. Looking at her reflection, she wonders why she put herself through so much pain for so long. The shopkeeper explains the effect is temporary and mentions a month's supply he prepped for a client's order. Zelda's surprised the potion only lasts a month and says she wants to buy more. She decides to order the medicine for next month and asks another question. The seller sadly says he can't fulfill her request, and she understands. In her mind, she dreams of finding a way to heal herself completely, once and for all. She's fuming, reading the paper, saying it'd be way more interesting to know what the Empress likes. There's a glint in her eye, like she already knows the Emperor's preferences. She's thinking how basic regular guys are, then out of nowhere asks why he's suddenly getting so casual. He smirks, saying she's way too sure she knows what the Emperor's into, 'cause he's not that simple. She claims she's tight with His Majesty, and is surprised he's suddenly being so informal. He chuckles, saying the Emperor's tastes are definitely not like hers, and she's getting annoyed at him pushing it. Inside, she's cursing her bad mood and getting pissed off at his teasing. The servant brings the medicine she ordered, and she thanks him for it. Zelda, holding the medicine, says the Emperor's not as rude as someone. She knows and remembers the Empress hates that kind of behavior. He gets suspicious, asking if she's maybe a little too friendly with the future Empress. She says with a smile she knows the future Empress better than he does. The guy points out that at least the future Empress isn't anything like her. Zelda thinks to herself that the future Empress definitely isn't her type. Memories flash back to the moment the Empress made a huge impression on everyone. In a lavish hall, a golden-haired girl is surprised by the unexpected encounter in such an unusual place. Memories take her back to when a mysterious hooded figure was in the shop before she arrived. And it was Emperor Linnell. The man with the enigmatic smile brings up their past meeting, hinting it was something significant. A flicker of worry crosses her eyes as she remembers exactly what kind of medicine she got back then. She mentally curses Prince Tesler for sending her there in the first place and prepares to explain the situation. The man asks, intrigued, if she was feeling that bad that she had to go looking for that medicine, and the girl looks away, flustered. Rapien's thinking back to their wedding night, how she looked kinda sickly, and now it all clicks. Zelda breathes a sigh of relief, realizing he didn't spot the scar on her face that day. She explains she was just grabbing a little pick-me-up, and he agrees that sounds about right. She gets curious and asks how he ended up there himself. Rapien says he went to get something for a chill he had. He admits it wasn't even enough, and gently squeezes her hand. Zelda blushes, realizing he was thinking about her and went to get medicine. Looking her straight in the eye, he confesses he wants to make a good impression on her now. Rapien, decked out in finery, sadly admits to himself that he wishes the Empress was more open and relaxed around him and his empire. Zelda, in a fancy dress, glances down shyly and suggests they get back to eating before the food gets cold. Standing before the altar amidst lavish designs and royal symbols, she tells herself there's no way his feelings are real. It's all about politics. She fights his pull, reminding herself she's just playing the part of Empress for now. Suddenly, she's taken aback, realizing maybe she won't need that medicine after all. He leans in close, thinking to himself that he's never met a more fiery Empress. Rapien, with a slight blush, looks at her hopefully, waiting to know how she feels. He smiles at the royal table, and she, flustered and blushing, replies with respect. Evening falls on the majestic palace, bathing it in peace and light. In the opulent halls, a servant announces that all the noble ladies have gathered, and the heroine, with no time to rest, hurries to the meeting. She agrees to go immediately, noting to herself how unique this place is. Before her towers a frighteningly huge and luxurious statue, stunning in its grandeur. Zelda's getting a bad vibe, like she doesn't belong here. Princess Roselia probably would have dug this place more. She's wondering if the Emperor will ever warm up to the real Empress, not just the stand-in. She and the maid head out of the hall, deciding to stay out of other people's business. Sunlight hits her face, and she smiles, enjoying a little peace and quiet with her tea. Later, soaking in the tub, she's surprised how crazy her first day as Empress was. No chill time at all. She notices the Emperor's busy too, which kinda puts her mind at ease. She wonders what the Emperor's up to right now, and suddenly, she's all wide-eyed. Zelda's getting flustered by her own thoughts, doesn't know why she cares, and tries to shake it off. She figures he probably won't be back tonight after the wedding night thing. I mean, he's not gonna show up just to hold hands, right? Lost in thought, she decides it's time to get out of the bath. As evening falls, dressed in a light nightgown, she lights a candle in her room. Suddenly, a strange glow surrounds her, and the girl finds herself in a mysterious space, gripped by anxiety. A sudden wave of heat washes over her, and her hand trembles from the unexpected sensation. The Empress feels everything around her becoming unbearably hot, and her gaze is full of worry. In desperation, she mentally calls for help, reaching out into the void. At that moment, a man gently pulls her close and kisses her, filling the space with light and warmth. Their embrace tightens, and with each moment, the heat gradually fades, giving way to tranquility. She feels relief and hope, realizing that now she can move on with her life. The Empress, overcome with embarrassment, finds herself in the arms of a man who, with a slight smile, lifts her into his arms. She, blushing and confused, looks at him in surprise, unable to find the words. Rapien admits with relief he was scared for her, worried she'd pass out, and asks how she's feeling. Still flustered, she explains she suddenly felt hot, probably from the long bath, and he notes her carelessness with a slight smirk. She apologizes for making him worry, looking at him gratefully. Rapien smiles gently, reminding her he's her husband, and assures her there's no need to talk about worrying between them. He leans in, and she looks into his eyes, surprised and excited, feeling the tension building. Their lips meet in a kiss, and she's overwhelmed, internally trying to pump the brakes. An image of another guy flashes in her mind, like from the shadows, telling her not to give in. She pulls away, looking down, embarrassed, and he asks with concern if she's okay. Zelda, blushing, apologizes and suggests he leave, saying she's not feeling well, thinking he'd usually be ticked off in this situation. He gently takes her hand, not letting her pull away, and a tender silence falls between them. Rapien, with a gentle smile, admits he wants to stay by the Empress's side a little longer, holding her hand tight. The girl, flustered and lost for words, just stares at him, seeing how genuine he is. She agrees, letting him hold her hand, and a warm closeness settles between them. Meanwhile, outside the palace walls, someone's sneering about the new Empress, calling her clueless and itching to teach her a lesson. Another woman, with a chilling smile, recalls the Empress just got married and starts cooking up some nasty schemes. While their enemies are plotting, the Emperor and Empress fall asleep together, holding hands, totally unaware of the trials ahead. Morning light fills the room as the girl with long blonde hair slowly wakes up, rubbing her eyes, and a maid greets her with a smile at the bedside. She sits up in bed, thoughtfully asking about His Majesty, and hears that he left at dawn on state business. Her hand drifts across the blanket, and it hits her that he came to her specifically, even though he's swamped. The girl's cheeks flush red, and her heart starts racing with tender feelings. The maid, a little flustered, is asking about Grand Duke Martins, wondering why he's been around so much lately. She admits with a happy grin that she actually wants to tell me something important. Zelda, looking worried, asks what's wrong, trying to stay calm. The maid, getting worked up, starts to explain what's going on. The girl is stunned by the news about the candidates being invited to, serve His Majesty. She's thinking it hasn't even been that long since the imperial wedding, and they're already talking about that kind of arrangement. Rapian, with a cold stare, realizes that Linnell and Grand Duke Martins want to see him specifically because of the selection process. He figures they're about to tell him a decision that's already been made. Zelda, in a gorgeous dress, stands with a determined and tense expression, bracing herself for what's coming. An image flashes in her mind of the man who was especially tender with her yesterday. She's trying to stay positive, reminding herself she's just holding down the fort as Empress for now. Taking a deep breath, she knows she's got to deal with this situation head-on. She enters the hall with a queenly air, all eyes on her, and her arrival is officially announced. The girls who've been invited as potential handmaidens gather before her, and she gives them the once-over. Girls from noble families, backed by ministers, show up in the hall, and the Empress takes them in. There's a sense of surprise among those gathered, seeing as all the girls look strikingly similar. Some of them are giving the Empress the stink eye, thinking she's an outsider and not worth acknowledging. The Empress stands before them in a killer dress, fully aware of her new role and the power she holds. She's betting that now she's the Empress of Rapian, nobody's gonna dare disrespect her openly. The girls, fighting their inner doubts, still bow in respectful greeting to the Empress. The girls greet the Empress with a mix of restraint and excitement, knowing how huge this meeting is. The Empress smiles faintly, noting that everything is going exactly as she anticipated. She addresses the group regally, saying she's glad to see them all and apologizing for the wait. The Empress asks for their understanding about not meeting sooner, keeping her composure. Catherine from the Kalios ducal family eagerly introduces herself, admitting she's been dying to meet the Empress. The Empress responds warmly to Catherine, mentioning they'll be seeing a lot of each other, given her high status. The Empress suggests with a light smile that they save the long talks for later and just enjoy tea surrounded by flowers and the palace's splendor. One of the girls carefully places her cup on the table, apologizing to the Empress for the interruption. A lady with purple hair asks curiously if the others have heard that some of them will be chosen as companions for His Majesty. The Empress, remaining calm, replies that she only learned about it on the way here, and a tense silence fills the room. That's gotta sting for the Empress, right? I mean, she's barely even married. Maybe we shouldn't be talking about this with her right here, but I'm kinda curious. Oh, get this! His Majesty and Lady Catherine used to be engaged? Gasp. No way! The Empress just keeps her cool, but you can tell she thinks this is totally disrespectful. Imagines the Emperor and Lady Catherine getting cozy. The thought of that engagement just hits different. Yeah, it's true, Lady Catherine says, all casual. I was supposed to marry His Majesty. Everyone's jaw drops. So Catherine could have been Empress. Whoa, easy there. Maybe dial it back a notch. Oh, Your Majesty, I am so sorry, the dark-haired girl stammers. Didn't mean to put my foot in it. Well, let's not forget, one of them says, all sweet and fake. The Rapian royal family always had certain arrangements, didn't they? Even Emperor Linnell himself. Another one chimes in, sipping her tea. is the son of the third arrangement. Wait, did the Empress even know about this? She asks, like totally surprised. You could cut the tension with a knife as they're all gossiping about how bummed they'd be finding out about the, extra company so soon, and how many there'll be. A maid interrupts the awkwardness, telling the Empress it's time to head to His Majesty's study. The Empress thinks, thank God, a few more minutes and they'd have eaten me alive. But out loud, she just announces the tea party's over. One of the girls, all nervous and hopeful, says something about how devoted she is to His Majesty, while everyone else just watches her. All kinds of mixed feelings. Zelda, getting her act together, smoothly touches the hem of her dress and heads for the door, telling them to follow her. Inside, she's thinking, even faking being nice is part of the job now. As the Empress leaves the room, the maid asks if she's going to talk about the, situation with the other women. Zelda plays it cool, doesn't let on what she's really thinking, just gives the lady a tight answer. She acts surprised and asks what exactly the other woman is so worried about, like she doesn't know where this is going. These girls, all huddled together, are straight up saying they're gonna be the Emperor's concubines. Like, no doubt about it. The Empress hears this and is like, wait, what? This is happening? And she bolts out of the room. She's fuming inside. She's thinking the Emperor could have given her a heads up about this whole thing. She walks into her office, and there's a dude with a warm smile, greeting her by name. She's trying to keep it cool, but she says, Your Majesty, you seem to be in particularly high spirits today. Rapian says all sweet, I wish I'd known how beautiful you were beforehand. I would have braced myself. The guy looks at her, surprised. He can tell by her face he might have just screwed up. Zelda says, all calm but with an edge, taking concubines isn't exactly a crime, is it? Rapian's starting to sweat. He's totally thrown. How did you even find out about the selection of concubines? He asks, all flustered. This morning, she was at a tea party with the noble daughters, and the ones who are gonna be His Majesty's concubines gave her a special greeting. Lady Catherine of the Kalios family was the center of attention, her gaze full of passion and confidence. Rumor has it around the palace that the Duke's daughter's been getting real close to His Majesty, and some folks are worried if it's true. Rapian admits with regret that he didn't want her to find out about it like this. The heroine, totally confused, asks what exactly he means. The man, covering his face with his hand, sighs heavily and turns to Zelda, confessing how he feels. The man admits he's surprised himself how fast things are moving, and the girl looks at him, worried. The woman in the fancy dress and the boy are getting some serious side-eye because people are wondering about their situation. The two men are making a deal to keep the church in check, bringing the kingdom of Chatanil into the mix. Zelda, with pain in her eyes, realizes that all of this is just a condition. The man acknowledges how sharp she is, explaining that there are other agendas at play here. She gets it now. Since he's a product of a concubine, everyone else wants to put a concubine's kid on the throne after him. The guy realizes the talks were careful, took everything into account. He admits it was the smartest move the other guy could make. Even after all that, she's still bummed out. Can't hide how she feels. He tells her one of the priests who was there on their wedding night started spreading rumors. He chuckles, admitting the rumors are about how enthusiastic he was with her. He jokes that everyone's just jealous of what they've got and apologizes. Zelda, flustered and touched, says she forgives him. He explained himself. He swears he's innocent. He suggests letting God judge the priest who started the rumors and warns the ministers and their daughters to watch their mouths. He grins, suggesting they hash everything out after their meeting with Grand Duke Martins. An elegant man walks in, greeting the two sons of the Rapian Empire with a respectful bow. The talk turns to concubines, and our guest confirms that's why he's here, saying he heard rumors from Rapian's ministers. The host asks about the mood among the ministers and wants to know their take on the situation. The guest says everyone's in a hurry, but he gets their anxiety and concern. The Duke smiles, reminding everyone that the Empress from Chatanil was accepted because of the whole international situation. Zelda carefully points out that ministers in any country rarely want to see a prince born from someone other than the main wife become heir. She adds that the more descendants the imperial family has, the stronger the empire becomes. The hero thinks to himself that this guy's definitely not on his side. The man sitting next to the girl barely contains his annoyance at what's happening. The Duke clarifies that if the ministers hadn't been so insistent, the whole concubine thing might not even be on the table. Rapian, with a cold look, asks a question. trying to figure out what the other guy's really after. A tense silence hangs in the opulent hall between the man and woman, thick with unspoken thoughts. Over a cup of tea, one of them cautiously asks to speak their mind. He suggests going with the flow and accepting the minister's wishes, emphasizing respect for the emperor and his advisors. The man warns that if they deliberately stall on the concubine issue, the ministers might see it as a threat to their power. Rapian calmly asks if the suggestion is to take on concubines to protect the Empress. The man smiles slightly, noting that even if they take on concubines, it won't matter unless he changes his attitude. Zelda realizes with growing unease that things are getting complicated. She thinks that if Grand Duke Martins is digging in his heels, her power as temporary empress is pretty limited. A voice inside her says she needs to make Emperor Linnell want to take concubines himself. The man asks with interest what Her Majesty the Empress thinks. Zelda gets the feeling they're trying to railroad her into signing off on this thing herself. The Empress, lost in thought, admits the Grand Duke's got a point. Rapian respectfully asks the Empress to give it a little more thought before answering. The girl clutches her dress, trying to keep it together, wondering what's going on with her. Rapian watches her closely, letting her know he's there to listen if she needs to talk. The Empress steels herself, smiles, and insists she's totally fine. The guy's thinking, damn, didn't know the Empress had that kind of understanding in her. Rapian decides to move things along so he doesn't ruffle the minister's feathers, and the Empress looks down, hiding how she really feels. The advisor walks in, a little nervous, asking if he was summoned. The advisor confirms all the ministers are waiting and gets the order to tell them she'll be right there. Another courtier chimes in, saying rushing this thing through is a smart move. The guy figures it'll be way easier for a girl from Chatanil to hang out with the Grand Duke. The Empress plays it cool, agrees, and decides to bounce, even though she's freaking out inside. Zelda gives a small bow, taking the compliment for making the right call. Suddenly, she hears an apology and finds out there's some big news about Chatanil for her. Meanwhile, the awesome Chatanil Palace is shining in the morning sun. Among the white roses and soft petals, word gets out. They finally found Princess Rosilia. Things are chill in the palace, but someone's wondering how the princess is doing. A young dude in full dress uniform says she's fine, except for one little detail, and wonders if the emperor will even notice. The doc explains if the princess chugs this potion before the wedding night, she can avoid any trouble, while the pink-haired girl is just lying on the bed, lost in her head. All right, listen up. Take care of that potion and everyone, out for a sec. Princess Rosilia's a mess, totally torn up inside. She thinks she's lost it because she's pregnant. Rosilia, please have a seat, man says, but she just stays put in bed. This guy in uniform is pissed, demanding answers. And she's freaking out, hiding under the covers. He just sighs, covers his face, thinks she's completely lost her marbles. He's laying into her, saying she bolted before the wedding with the emperor and screwed everything up. Rosilia snaps back, defending someone else, saying how smart he is. Flashback time. She ditches the mercenary and comes back with the royal knights. The princess admits it's tough adjusting to being a regular person after all those years in the palace. She's crying, explaining she had no choice but to run because of the baby. The guy just wearily agrees. Coming! Man groans, hand on his forehead, reluctantly answering his brother's call. Rosilia asks anxiously, "Did you let Norton and the kid go?" The man stares intently, giving nothing away. The mercenary, holding the kid, reaches out like he's begging for help or a way out. A hand appears from the shadows, confirming everything that was said is true. A worried woman in a fancy dress asks, "When will the princess arrive at Rapian Palace?" The young man explains, "There have been complications. The princess's health has taken a turn. She needs time to recover. I'll report to His Majesty immediately when we have news from the kingdom," he promises. The man in the ceremonial uniform thinks, "Just a few more days here, then I'm out. At best, this wait could drag on for months, and I don't know if I should be happy about that." Zelda, relieved and exhausted, agrees with the proposed solution. The guy in the fancy suit suggests cleaning up the situation with the other women before Princess Rosilia gets to the palace. Zelda asks, annoyed, why she's the one who has to do it. The man thoughtfully taps his gloved fingers, searching for the right words. He explains with a smile that it's for the future Empress Rosilia. The woman gets ticked off by what he says and decides to leave. The man, keeping his cool, offers to escort her with a polite smile. The girl in the elegant dress is soaking up the sun in the garden. Every inch of it's gorgeous. Standing among the sunflowers, she remembers something important that happened before the engagement. The girl with the purple hair admits to the man in uniform that she was an idiot back then, and she still regrets what she did. Rapian, stone cold, admits that what he hates most is lies and deceit. The girl, eyes downcast, thinks that if she'd gotten a hug back then, she wouldn't have had to do what she did. She awkwardly mentions that she's become his woman now, though that's not what she meant. The purple-haired girl looks up in surprise as she's warned about something important. Rapian, face like ice, demands they not speak disrespectfully about his wife. Zelda, in her pink dress, overhears that she doesn't belong to anyone yet, and that nothing happened between them. Anxiously, she decides she needs to quickly take another route, as the man cheerfully calls out to her. In a comical style, the girl reacts in confusion to the man's words, who just keeps laughing. Zelda, clutching a sunflower stem, awkwardly tries to explain what she's doing in this place. The guy with the buzzsaw, looking serious, demands they show themselves right now, trying to hide his anxiety. This girl, all smiles and holding a sunflower, is totally acting like she just happened to be passing by. Purple Hair greets the Empress, reminding her they just saw each other at that tea party. She puffs out her chest and announces she's about to be the Emperor's main squeeze. Gold Vest Guy says they'll be seeing a lot more of each other now, and the girl just clams up, trying to keep it together. Rapian, in his military getup, grumbles that the Empress and the Grand Duke are even taking walks together now. The Empress gives a little smile and confirms that, yeah, this is Grand Duke Martins she's talking to. She turns to the Emperor, surprised and a little ticked off, hinting at what he's been up to. The Emperor coolly points out that he and the Duke are the only reps from the Shaitanal Kingdom, so they probably have stuff to discuss. The Empress, barely holding back her annoyance, listens as the Duke apologizes if they're, intruding on something. Rapian's totally confused, asking why they'd be considered an intrusion. Zelda, keeping her cool, says she was just about to head back to her chambers. The guy grabs her arm, trying to stop her, but she's surprised by the move. She looks at him, worried and confused, not knowing what to do next. She lowers her head and apologizes, showing how flustered and embarrassed she is. The guy in the military uniform watches what's happening, surprised and a little nervous. The young guy in the fancy suit smiles and assures the other guy that he'll escort the Empress himself and then be on his way. The Emperor and Empress stand in the garden among the sunflowers, a tense silence hanging between them. In the lavish hall, a man with a kindly smile is surprised at how fast the woman in the pink dress is walking. The woman with pink eyes listens, a little embarrassed. As her companion explains, he came to escort her out of a sense of duty, because he was concerned. She reminds him that he failed the night trials and questions his chivalry, which catches him off guard. The guy's face is all worried. He's like, "How'd you find out about that?" Zelda, all smiles in her pink dress, says, "Real mysterious. Prince Tesler spilled the beans." The young dude's totally thrown. "Wait, what? Tesler told you?" She's thinking, "Okay, I totally made that up, but who cares?" She's teasing him now. "Oh, and I heard all about your hot thing with the Duchess Elrito's widow, like 3 years back." "Aw, and wasn't your first crush that Countess Rodlo's wife? The one who's been divorced like 3 times? Zelda's grinning. "Hey, maybe you should try your luck over in the Rapian Empire." The Duke's surprised, a little nervous. "Well, be careful getting back." He gently takes her hand, playing along. He bows slightly over her hand. Maybe I will go looking for a little happiness." Alone, the girl sits thoughtfully in the tub, wondering if they can ever go back to the way things were. In a sunflower garden, a woman with purple hair bitterly thinks that if someone had just been there for her, she wouldn't have had to do what she did. She looks ahead with confidence, anticipating the moment she becomes His Majesty's first consort. Zelda lies thoughtfully in the bath, realizing she's become the first consort, and it's a real shock. She understands that this event holds a special significance for Linnell. It's only been a few days since the wedding, and her husband already has concubines, which really stings. For the Emperor, this is considered normal, but for her, the temporary Empress, it's a tough pill to swallow. The bathwater's getting hot fast, so she rushes to add some cold to cool things down. Flustered and annoyed, she stands her ground, demanding to be left alone. Zelda, in a rush and totally embarrassed, tries to pull herself together to greet her guest, not expecting a visit so soon. She finds herself in the bathtub, and the guy's watching her through the glass, asking a totally out-of-left-field question. Surprised and confused, she sees him heading for the bedroom and wonders what he's up to. She quickly explains that she was just about to finish up, but he orders her to stay put. Rapian swears he won't peek, tells her not to move, and promises he'll be right back. Rose petals spill through his fingers, and he decides that's probably enough. Rapian, with a slight smile, remarks that it'll be easier to talk now, surrounded by the scent of roses. Zelda, flustered and covered in petals, stares at him, not knowing how to react to all this. He jokes, wondering if he went overboard with the petals, admitting he would have grabbed less if he knew they wouldn't hide anything. Rapian says with a gentle smile that he doesn't need a reason to visit his Empress. He sits down next to her, pointing out that if his visit had been announced, she would have been ready for him. He admits with a genuine smile that everyone's used to seeing him all polished up, but things are different now. Zelda, pink-eyed and hair down, sits shyly in the tub, surrounded by rose petals. Hearing him say it's an honor for a man to see her like this, she looks down, blushing, and answers quietly, not knowing how to react to his words. Rapian, leaning in, acknowledges her beauty with a gentle smile, carefully touching her face. Zelda turns away, admitting she's self-conscious without makeup, and he sits beside her, never taking his eyes off her. She lowers her head, hiding her embarrassment, as rose petals float on the water's surface around her knees. Rapian gently takes her hand in the water, and she asks in surprise what he's doing. He admits with a light smile that he picked way too many petals, trying to keep things chill. Zelda, suddenly flustered, covers herself with her hands and looks at him, surprised. She reaches for his hand, like she's trying to stop him or hold him back. A flicker of worry crosses her mind. Getting this close could spell trouble. Rapian runs a hand through his hair, a faint smile playing on his lips, wondering if it's the best kind of trouble. Still flustered, she hears him confess that she's the first for him. His hair is dripping wet, water glistening on his face, a playful smile hinting that someone made him take a bath. Zelda, with her long blonde hair, clutches her chest self-consciously, feeling her heart race. She looks up, startled, as a man appears beside her, and the tension in the air thickens. Rapian joins her in the bathroom, and her face flushes crimson with surprise and embarrassment. Her eyes widen, her face a mixture of shock and confusion. Rapian smiles, trying to ease the tension, and she lowers her gaze, still flustered. He wonders if they spiked the water with something, because it feels like it's getting hotter, and she's still hiding her face, totally overwhelmed. Rapian subtly brushes her leg underwater, making her blush and freak out a little. His hand moves up to her knee, and she's surprised by the touch. Flustered, she says there aren't any magic stones in the tub, and he's all, "Huh?" Zelda denies it, annoyed and embarrassed, and the guy just smiles and says, "My bad." He's like, "How's the water still so warm?" Watching the water drip off his hand, Zelda figures the water was just super hot to begin with, so it's taking forever to cool down. She suddenly remembers, like, wait, wasn't it freezing cold? Rapian's confused, wondering why the water's still so warm. He grins and suggests it's because of the warmth of her heart. Zelda, blushing hard, realizes that's totally it. She realizes that if that stone hadn't fallen into the bath, she could have gotten burned bad. With that magic stone and the fire crackling, it hits you. These two have got something real going on. Zelda's soaking up the warm bath, and the dude's feeling his muscles finally unwind after that workout. She gets all worked up and asks him about his past during the war. Memories flood back, and he's right back on the battlefield, going toe-to-toe with the enemy. Rapian insists he's no cold-blooded killer, and explains how crucial this national marriage is to strengthen the North. The girl chimes in, saying the marriage is also needed to keep those ministers in check. Getting flustered, she starts wondering if maybe he, accidentally, fell into the tub just to have this conversation. Rapian, with a sly grin, brings up this national marriage thing, surrounded by flowers and chill vibes. Zelda, blushing hard, admits she doesn't regret her choice, and promises to put in the work for their future together. They're joking around, saying the bathtub's a great place for a chat, but she admits she's totally on edge. Rapian realizes he's being a jerk and cops to it, staring at the flower petals in the water. He asks her to scoot forward, and she's all surprised and flustered by his request. Zelda, blushing hard, decides to hop out first, feeling like things are about to get really heated if they stay like this. Rapian smirks, pointing out that if she gets out, The water'll get cold. And he'll have to get out too. Zelda, embarrassed and wrapped in a towel, rushes out, telling him not to peek. Later, lying together under the covers, they talk about maybe staying in the tub too long, and he asks how she's feeling. She admits she's getting warmer next to him, and wonders if she'd warm up faster if she gave him a hug. Rapian, lying on the pillow, tells her to come closer. He gently pulls her close, remembering how only battle used to warm him, and now it's her being there. He gently touches her face, confessing that he feels at peace when she's near. Zelda worries that if she disappears, he'll revert to his old, destructive ways. He admits it's the only way he knows to keep going, and she thoughtfully considers his words. A feeling arises that Lionel will soon encounter 4 beautiful companions. Among them is a stunningly gorgeous princess with pink hair named Resilia. Rapian embraces the girl tightly, saying that for the sake of peace, she shouldn't leave his side. He holds Zelda close with a tender smile, reminding her of her position as Empress and his wife. An hour earlier, night shrouded the palace, and the cold starlight reflected in the windows. In the hallway, a knight anxiously asks if the Emperor has gone to the Empress's chambers. The other knight confirms that the Emperor entered her room and hasn't left since. Someone's smirking, eyeing the ornament on her chest, totally catching Linnell's game. 2 guys in the hall are wondering why the husband rushed to his wife so late. Rolf Martin's bodyguard figures the husband probably has some urgent business. One of them's surprised that even stone-cold dudes have their needs. They're both realizing the Emperor's got good taste, since he's into the Empress. Whoa, these guys are suddenly realizing they've said way too much. One of them's like, wait, did that come out like the Empress is, really hot? The knight gives an apologetic smile, carefully choosing his next words. He's flashing back to watching the Empress practice her swordsmanship on the training grounds. He's blown away by her skill, admitting he feels like dirt compared to her. The Empress politely points out, "You didn't exactly make the cut for the knight's order." The young guy throws a hand over his face, totally bummed and not hiding it. The knight reports the patient's still touch and go. This week's gonna be rough, and the royal knights are sweating it too. The dude in the fancy suits, shocked the guy survived that cliff dive, orders the doc to watch him like a hawk, and asks about the kid's condition. Good thing the kid was being held during the fall. Doesn't look like any major bumps or bruises on him. He asks cautiously, what the heck happened? He's thinking about this merc named Noton. Figures he might be more than meets the eye. There's some kind of crest or symbol on the gem in the merc's sword hilt. The guy figures that crest could belong to some noble or even royal family. The guy smirks mysteriously and orders, "Bring me that sword." The morning sun's hitting just right, and she's waking up with a real satisfied smile. Dude's right there next to her, watching her wake up, looking all soft and gentle. They're soaking up the warmth and coziness, talking about how last night went. Things get playful, and they're joking about not being able to sleep apart when summer rolls around. Zelda remembers dreaming that something was like weighing down her legs. Rapian's grinning, just covered by the sheet, suddenly realizing he's sporting his birthday suit. She's blushing like crazy, grabbing the blanket and trying to cover up. A fancy breakfast just appears on the table, and there's this weird vibe of, is this really happening, in the air? She's hiding her face in her hands while they eat, and he's just sipping his coffee like nothing's up. She's apologizing for overreacting, saying she was just caught off guard. Rapian holds out a piece of pie to the girl, inviting her to try it. Zelda enthusiastically tries the pie, savoring the taste. The man watches her with interest at the table and asks how she would describe the pie's flavor in one word. He smiles, admitting he felt the same way when he first tasted this pie. Zelda is surprised when the man says he usually doesn't want to share his favorite pie, and asks, "What about the Empress?" The man, holding his cup, says that the official ceremony for the new consorts will be held next week. The girl smiles slightly, remarking that His Majesty isn't exactly a pie. Rapian, in his dress uniform, confirms what he said, looking at the girl. Zelda, blushing, offers the man her piece of pie too, admitting she didn't touch it on purpose. She recalls with surprise that he said he didn't want to share his favorite pie. The guy just smiles real gentle, listening to her ask why he's giving her the treat. He pulls her in close, real tender-like, and she just freezes in his arms, snuggled up against his shoulder. She hears him remind her about being the Empress and all. The purple-haired chick is pissed, demanding her waist look even smaller, blaming the maids for screwing it up. She's smirking at herself in the mirror, thinking the dress color for the ceremony ain't important, as long as she's the hottest one there. Remembering that engagement getting called off 'cause her thing with the Earl came out. She feels that old sting. Totally confident in her looks, she figures no dude can resist her, and getting Linnell into bed is just a matter of time. Her eyes flash when she thinks about some nobody girl becoming Empress. Putting on this killer necklace, she's convinced that power's what really matters, not just status. This woman's got a cocky grin, dreaming big about power, picturing how, once she pops out an heir, the whole court will be eating out of her hand again. Zelda, with a cold stare and quiet dignity, thinks to herself that she's the one they'll be bowing to. Usually, the concubine induction ceremony in the Rapian Empire is a low-key affair in the temple's prayer room, with the king just quietly reciting sacred texts. But this time, the ceremony's a huge spectacle in the main temple, all thanks to the ministers pushing for it. The fact that the concubine ceremony was rushed wasn't random at all. There were hidden agendas at play. The duke, pretending to be a loyal subject of the empire, was negotiating with the ministers and even helped prepare the documents. Turns out, it was all a pre-planned scheme to push forward a new empress. The concubine ceremony is about to start, and all eyes will be glued to the participants. The dark-haired noblewoman, filled with resentment, compares herself to another court lady, wondering why she's more worthy of being the first concubine. Her friend explains that Catherine was His Majesty's beloved, which is why she became the first concubine. A mocking smile spreads across the girl's lips as she says her rival's name with disdain. Melanie, with this cryptic smile, is going on about how even a cracked gold coin is still worth something, saying even glued back together, it's still cracked. She's daydreaming about diamond earrings and straight up demanding them. Another woman walks into the hall in a white dress, wondering what all the shouting's about. Catherine walks up to the other woman, grabs her chin, and asks her a question, using her name. She explains that a cracked gold coin can be melted down, because gold is always worth more than silver. One of the girls tries to pull away, surprised she's being held. Melanie, the one with the blue hair, glares. Realizing the other woman thinks she's a total airhead, she hears her being told she'll explain it simpler, at her level, and she's not happy about it. Catherine, with a smug grin, announces she's the head concubine and calls the other woman number 2. She dismissively touches the girl's head, pointing out she hasn't even met His Majesty. Melanie's fuming, fists clenched, realizing they're worlds apart. In response to the put-down, another woman snaps at Catherine, accusing her of acting like she's all that. The young guy, stone-faced, announces the ceremony's about to start and tells the concubines to get ready to move out. Catherine agrees confidently, but the girl next to her looks stressed. The head concubine gives a chilly smile, demanding respect for her position. It's a warning shot. The redhead hangs her head, feeling threatened and not wanting to test her rival's power. One of the women worries about the Empress, squeezing someone's hand tight, wondering how she's doing. The blonde sadly remembers their first meeting with the Empress went south, and it's still eating at her. In the hall, packed with ladies in fancy dresses, there's a glimmer of hope that things will get better eventually. Zelda holds her teacup, a confident smile playing on her lips, thinking about how to earn trust and break through someone's defenses. A hand gently touches the ornament on the table, a silent wish to not stand out echoing in her mind. The grand hall, filled with marble statues, is bathed in light as the concubine selection ceremony begins. Linnell, looking serious, requests to exchange greetings with the concubines, kissing someone's hand. The emperor and the concubines place their hands on the altar, completing the important ritual beneath a canopy of flowers. After the ceremony, the emperor listens with restraint to the elder advisor's instructions. He's asked to share a kiss with the concubines, and he approaches one of them, keeping his cool. Meanwhile, a woman with golden hair gazes thoughtfully out the window, wondering what Zelda is up to right now. She's relieved she didn't have to be at the ceremony, quietly closing the door behind her. Alone, she feels the weight of loneliness, unable to eat or sleep, thinking that being at the ceremony would have just made the day even more of a drag. Standing on the balcony that evening, she wonders if the emperor has already gone to the concubines' chambers. As night fell, the girl decided to turn in, hoping sleep would bring some peace. Zelda's surprised to hear they're going to tattle to the Empress about her, and her eyes narrow. Just then, a dude in full dress uniform shows up, giving her a jolt of surprise and butterflies. Zelda, hearing her name, peeks out from behind the curtains, hand clutching her chest. The young maid with glasses, looking a little flustered, tries to explain what's going on. Emerging from the dazzling flowers is a young man, requesting an audience with Her Majesty. The heroine asks anxiously if the Duke really came at this hour, and is told he's already waiting in the study. The maid explains she tried to find out what he wanted, but the Duke insisted on seeing Her Majesty personally. Zelda muses, if it's a bad time, maybe they should ask the Duke to come back tomorrow. She insists it's not bedtime yet, and asks the maid to fetch her a shawl. Throwing a shawl around herself, she gets ready to meet her guest. The young guy greets her with a smile, acting all happy to see her. In this little setup, she's clearly not thrilled he's here, wondering what he wants. The Duke looks kind of flustered, asks her not to be mad, says he just came to brighten her evening. In her head, she's thinking, seriously? You bothered me this late for that? The young man calmly sips his tea, just watching everything go down. Zelda looks all worked up, but they're trying to calm her down. She's thinking back to that whole ceremony with the concubine and feeling super alone. He mentions the Emperor's spending the night with one of the concubines and asks if she knew. Zelda admits it's standard procedure, but inside, she's anything but chill. He notices she looks upset as she silently sips her tea. Inside, she's thinking how much she can't stand this guy, but he just keeps on talking. She thoughtfully sets down her cup, wondering if it's too late for this conversation. Zelda asks, trying to keep it cool, what exactly the Duke wants to tell her. The Duke, with a little smirk, says again that he just came to keep her company tonight. She figures he's more interested in watching her squirm than actually caring, and tells him to get some sleep. Just then, a maid bursts into the room, cutting them off with a panicked shout. Zelda's stunned to hear the Emperor's shown up at her bedroom door, and can't believe her ears. The Emperor, instead of being with his concubine, is here in her room, which is totally suspicious and freaking her out. She's worried sick, wondering if the Emperor found out about her and the Duke. The Emperor asks, all icy and curious, what exactly she meant by their relationship. The Duke's forced to greet the Emperor, feeling the tension in the air. Zelda gets lost in thought, wondering if the Emperor should know what's going on between her and the Duke. The guy's surprised to see how cozy she is with the Duke, and she clutches her chest, flustered. Zelda nervously insists that she and the Duke aren't that close, but nobody's buying it. The guy coldly says that if that's true, she won't mind the Duke kicking the bucket, and she's totally shocked. In a funny bit, the girl thinks to herself that getting rid of the Duke actually sounds kinda tempting, but then she realizes that after the Duke's gone, some even bigger pain in the butt noble might show up, and that scares her. Linnell, watching her reaction, laughs like the whole thing's a joke. The girl agrees with the Empress's points, realizing that jumping the gun could just make things worse for her. The Duke smirks, mentioning he made it out of the Empress's chambers alive, and the girl lowers her head, flustered. Linnell tells the guest to get out, hinting she can't be held responsible for what she'll do if that smile fades. The guest quickly says his goodbyes, addressing the Emperor and Empress with respect. The girl feels her hand being squeezed tightly, signaling a change in the air. The Emperor, putting his arm around the girl's shoulders, confidently announces they're heading to the bedroom. The Emperor and Empress leave the room together, lost in their own thoughts. Zelda cautiously asks why the Emperor came to her so late, reminding him of his duties to his concubine. The man admits he was supposed to be in the concubine's chambers, but he chose the Empress's instead. The Emperor asks accusingly why she's always thinking about herself. The girl admits with a touch of sadness that she was a little worried about the Emperor visiting the concubine. Dude's like, let's be real, this has been bugging you all day, which totally catches her off guard. The Emperor gently takes her hand, and bam! You can cut the tension with a knife. Their feelings are hitting fever pitch as he leans in, and everything just kind of freezes, like something's about to change big time. He's leaning in, their eyes lock, and the air's buzzing with anticipation, like, is this really happening? They're just holding each other, finding comfort and warmth, even though nothing actually happens that night. Catherine, decked out in a killer outfit and holding a crown, is blown away by all this, wondering what's even the point of having concubines. The guy, all smiles, is musing about what it means to be Emperor Rapian. The girl, flustered and blushing, is feeling super awkward about the idea of turning down a kiss. She's falling for Linnell hard, her heart swelling with tenderness and joy whenever he's around. His hand brushes against hers. The air crackles with uncertainty, and something so simple feels suddenly super complicated. He leans in closer, and the tension between them is electric. One wrong word could change everything. Their eyes lock, and a gentle touch fills the moment with anticipation and butterflies. Linnell, his voice shaky, begs her to keep him close tonight, laying his heart bare. Flustered and vulnerable, she pleads with him not to go to her, revealing what she truly wants. The advisor reminds him he needs to visit the other woman to keep the Empress happy and maintain the political balance. Zelda gently touches his neck, a fierce resolve building in her heart to reject what she doesn't want. A happy smile lights up his face when he hears her answer. Their lips meet in a tender kiss, sealing a silent agreement between them. Linnell holds her tight, and she, clinging to him, begs him to stay, to not leave her side. Her voice trembles with emotion as she confesses she doesn't want to let him go. He's begging her, all sweet and hopeful, to stay with him tonight. Linnell's staring blankly, totally shocked by what he's just heard. His lips are pressed tight, and you could cut the tension with a knife. He straightens up and says, real controlled, that he gets it. With a little smirk, he decides he'll do what the Empress wants and head over to the concubine. Zelda's left alone in this fancy room, lost in her own head and feelings. Out in the garden, a servant's wondering out loud if the Emperor even visited Lady Catherine last night. The servant's getting all worked up, talking about the Emperor's usual late-night habits, trying to figure him out. Zelda gives a tight smile, saying everything's totally normal, and she's not worried at all. She starts wondering what last night would have been like if she'd stayed with Linnell, and imagines them sharing a tender moment. She knows that spending the night with Linnell would have brought down the wrath of some seriously powerful players. The image of rejected Catherine and the fearsome Duke at Kalios, with the Empire's strongest army, flashes in her mind. Zelda realizes that not just the Duke, but all the ministers would be looking at her sideways, ready to pounce if she messed up. She understands that her actions could have made things really complicated for Emperor Linnell himself. Her eyes reflect her determination. She's convinced she did the right thing. Clenching her fists, she admits she made this choice solely for Linnell Gadion Edpa. Even though her decision avoided a clash with the ministers, it didn't exactly smooth things over with Linnell. The maid responds, a little caught off guard, ready to jump to her next task. Zelda gazes into the distance, knowing a separation is coming, but her resolve remains strong. She smiles, thinking about how she wants to make things right with Linnell, and plans their afternoon meetup. Sharon's pumped. She's saying we gotta go see the Emperor, thinks it's gonna be huge. A herald bursts in, announcing the Empress's arrival with all the fanfare. The Empress is thrown for a loop when they stop her at the door, saying someone's already with him. She finds out it's Catherine who just went in, and you can see the worry all over her face. The advisor's got a bad feeling about Catherine being here, remembering the Emperor was with her last night. Catherine appears in the doorway, looking cold and determined, and the tension in the room just ratchets up. She gives a mysterious little smile, noticing the Empress, but you can't tell what she's really thinking. First concubine Catherine Kalios is getting ready for this showdown, smoothing out her glove. Cool, and with a hint of sarcasm, she greets the Empress, making it clear this is all just for show. In the fancy hall, the two women face off. One's about to leave, but then she suddenly hesitates. Zelda's wondering what could bring the Empress to the office at this hour. She admits she thought you were the only one here. Catherine, with a sly smile, remarks that Her Majesty is looking especially radiant today. Zelda's fuming inside, suspecting she's being messed with. Knowing about Linnell's visit to the Empress yesterday, she decides to play dumb, smiling as she replies that maybe she looks good because she got some sleep. Zelda's confused, because she spent the night alone and doesn't get what's up with everyone. The dark-haired girl observes that those bloodshot eyes tell a tale of a night of excitement. She decides to leave, bidding farewell to the Emperor and Empress. Zelda, slightly flustered, answers the question, saying that last night was all right. The Emperor, holding a cup, asks if that's why she came. Zelda's just standing there, totally lost. Doesn't know what to say. She admits, kinda embarrassed, that she actually wanted to ask about something else entirely. Zelda explains she's been freaking out all day, 'cause he bolted last night, and the cup in his hand's shaking a little. Linnell promises he'll be on his best behavior from now on, so the Empress doesn't worry, and she sighs with relief. He tells her to take a seat, but she says, all flustered, that she thinks she's interrupting. She mentions she's seen he's doing all right, and asks if she can head out. Linnell looks at her, a little smile playing on his lips, just watching how she reacts. The girl in the fancy dress slowly heads for the exit, making it clear she's leaving. Linnell chuckles a little, thinking that from the outside, It might look like the Empress jumps at his every word. He tells her to go, making a point that she's free to do whatever she wants. Zelda finally decides to leave, feeling a little unsure of herself. Once she's out the door, she admits to herself that she wasn't being honest yesterday and really wanted to spend the night with him. Just then, a maid calls out to her, and she turns around, hearing her name. Sharon excitedly suggests they go check out the palace greenhouse to take her mind off things. Zelda agrees, and they head to the greenhouse together. Behind them, another girl watches from the shadows, hiding behind a pillar. Inside the greenhouse, the maid explains that the plants here are super sensitive to the temperature. She admits it's her first time here, and she thinks the place is incredibly cool. Zelda smiles, guessing that Sharon wanted to come to the greenhouse herself, and the maid denies it, a little embarrassed, trying to explain. The Empress laughs genuinely, enjoying the moment in the sunny greenhouse. Suddenly, she tenses up, feeling someone's eyes on her, wondering who could be watching them from the palace. Sensing a possible threat, she steps in front of Sharon, ready to protect her. Surprise flashes across the girl's face as she recognizes someone familiar in the stranger. Sharon remembers with a jolt that this isn't just any lady, but concubine Rosie Adelheid. The second concubine, Rosie Adelheid, greets the Empress with a deep bow, emphasizing her respect. Zelda asks if Rosie came to see the greenhouse, and Rosie admits she's never been here before. In the greenhouse, both girls remark that it's easier on the soul and clearer in the head, and Rosie confirms that feeling. The Empress says with a serious expression that she wanted to offer her apologies. Rosie explains nervously that she once entered the Empress's bedroom without permission, thinking she was allowed to. Sharon adds that the other girls said the Empress had given permission, and she believed them, but now she's embarrassed, and the Empress calmly assures her it's all right. Rosie's relieved to hear it's all in the past, and since she didn't know, she can't be blamed. The girl with the golden locks admits she never dreamed of being a concubine. She just wanted to live, reading books. Rosie says with a smile that she reads everything, but she loves books about magic the most. The Empress is surprised to learn that Rosie has been studying healing magic on her own, from books since she was a kid. Rosie shyly thanks her for the kind words, her face lighting up with a happy smile among the flowers of the greenhouse. The Empress suddenly remembers another important detail, and her gaze becomes thoughtful against the shimmering light. She notices that Rosie looked closely at the right side of her face and wonders to herself why she did that. Zelda worries, thinking the magic potion couldn't have worn off this fast, and fears her secret is out. Catherine appears in the greenhouse with a confident smile, once again drawing everyone's attention. The Empress, feeling the tension, hears herself being addressed with respect, emphasizing her high status. Catherine's got this sly grin, yapping about sucking up and how to score brownie points with the big shots. The redhead's all flustered, trying to explain herself, stumbling over her words. Catherine, with this icy smile, wants to know if she really heard her name dropped. Rosie's a mess, apologizing, saying she's still new and just slipped up. She's freaked out, reminding them the Queen's here and suggesting they table this convo. Out of nowhere, the purple-haired lady smacks the redhead, saying she had it coming. Zelda's watching the whole thing, looking serious and worried as the redhead ends up in front of her. Catherine's pissed, reminding her she warned her about this. The redhead's backpedaling, bringing up their childhood and promising to watch her mouth in the future. That purple glove's flying up again, like she's gonna unload another one and she's spitting ice. Two maids watch the scene nervously, hearing the sharp command. Zelda's impressed and surprised by the sheer audacity of it all. In the lavish greenhouse, the violet-haired woman sneers, demanding obedience, while inwardly she's furious that someone dared to get rough right in front of her. Rosie, shaking with fear and shame, quickly apologizes and calls her attacker Madam. Catherine, smirking with satisfaction, remarks that if Rosie had just complied in the first place, she wouldn't have been humiliated in front of Her Majesty. She thinks to herself that the second concubine is the Emperor's official concubine, and no sane person would treat her roughly. Zelda, her eyes hardening, fumes inwardly that such behavior is especially unacceptable in her presence. Catherine, with fake politeness, apologizes to Her Majesty for the disturbance, justifying her actions as needing to put those who don't know their place back in line. Zelda muses that it's the duty of superiors to teach their subordinates, even if it requires using force, and the duty of inferiors to learn their lesson. The question of agreement hangs in the air, and Catherine doesn't have time to react. The Empress, with a look of pure steel, slaps her rival across the face. Catherine clutches her head, reeling from the blow, and the maids rush to her, freaking out. She thinks to herself, a backhand to the head? I'm being too nice. A slap to the cheek would have left a mark for sure. Suddenly, someone calls her name, and she looks up, startled, at a new figure. The blonde, with icy composure, demands she be thanked for the little lesson. Catherine, outraged and hurt, asks if she's trying to humiliate her in front of the servants. Inside, she's fuming that someone dared to call her out for raising her voice. Zelda, barely keeping her cool, says the list of her rival's offenses is long, but she's willing to let this one slide. She warns her that this isn't going to be the end of it, not by a long shot. Catherine, looking down, admits she messed up and promises to be more careful in the future. She nods, head down, trusting her with a quiet, okay. Zelda flashes Rosie a confident smile, but the redhead just freezes. Rosie gives a shy smile, saying goodbye, hoping they can talk again soon. The Empress breathes a sigh of relief, glad she didn't freak her out. She heads to her chambers with her maid, leaving Catherine behind, trying to keep it together. Alone, Catherine seethes, replaying last night, feeling like lines were crossed. The blonde fumes, thinking her good deed went completely unappreciated. Rosie watches Catherine anxiously, seeing her fight back tears. The concubine is devastated, remembering that last night was supposed to be her first night with the Emperor. She mentally lashes out at her rival, thinking she already has plenty of chances with him, begging her to at least leave the other concubines their first night. Cold Eyes figures Linnell skipped Catherine, and he's got a hunch why you're here. Catherine, fighting back tears, admits she can't sway the king's decisions. It's out of her hands. Zelda, eyes downcast, is sorry this happened and confesses she doesn't know the answer. The teacup rattles as the maid realizes with a jolt that His Majesty didn't go to Catherine. Another maid wonders, surprised, where the Emperor actually spent last night. Zelda, staring thoughtfully into her cup, agrees with what everyone's implying. Catherine, gripped by anxiety, has a bad feeling this whole mess is about to blow up somewhere else. Worried, the man recalls sending someone off, hoping they'd be safe. The blonde thinks with tenderness and worry that she just wants to protect Linnell from all this. The maid looks surprised as her mistress asks her to go to the main palace, not understanding why. The blonde admits to herself with a soft smile that she really needs Linnell. The man in the dress uniform touches the decoration on his chest thoughtfully, his hand tense. The advisor remarks that His Majesty seems more troubled than during the Death Gorge War. The ruler confirms with a nervous smile that this is, in fact, the case. The advisor is surprised, and the ruler admits with regret that he wishes it weren't true. The advisor asks permission to ask a question he doesn't understand and begins to ponder. He points out that the ruler was calm during the wedding, but became even more tense after the ceremony, and the reason for this remains a mystery. Sitting among the roses and holding a cup, the Emperor can't help but smile while discussing state affairs. The advisor remarks reservedly that despite being unmarried, he's more experienced in matters of the heart than his ruler. Embarrassed and blushing, the Emperor asks him to explain the reason for his strange behavior. The advisor figures it's all about looking forward to seeing her and says the Emperor's got great intuition. The Emperor admits that hearing that makes his heart pound even harder. The advisor straight up asks if the Emperor's really sweating the Empress, maybe visiting his chambers, but he tells him not to be so blunt about it. The dude in the fancy outfit, all flustered and covering his face, starts imagining something big and exciting. The advisor, standing behind him, reminds him that no woman's ever been in His Majesty's bedroom before, while the dude just sits there at his desk, lost in thought. The advisor, with a little smirk, points out that today's gonna be a day for the history books. Night falls over the palace. The stars twinkle above the grand building, hinting at changes to come. Young Zelda, cheeks flushed, is nervous as hell standing under the night sky. Her attendant asks, worried, if Her Majesty's all right, and Zelda turns around, surprised and flustered. The Empress, blushing, smiles, admitting to herself she's a bundle of nerves, but still decides to head inside. Her friend's trying to cheer her up, telling her not to sweat it too much, but the girl just smiles, saying even the maid's freaking out. The girl tries to chill, telling herself she's good. In the hall, surrounded by flowers, she bumps right into a young guy, and they lock eyes. She's surprised and asks what His Majesty's doing here, not hiding how flustered she is. The guy, a little embarrassed, explains he was just taking a walk and is heading back now. The girl nervously looks at his outstretched hand, hesitantly grabbing the edge of his cloak. The young man, with a slight smile and a blush, invites her to head to the bedroom, surrounded by white flowers. Their hands gently intertwine among the scattering of white roses, and the girl quietly agrees. The couple slowly walks down the hallway, holding hands, their footsteps echoing in the silent palace. The Empress, with a faint smile, ponders her mood and the reason for her visit to the bedroom. She admits, kinda shyly, that she just came here to crash. The guy, cheeks a little flushed, says he was hoping to chat a bit. Their hands touch, and she's all butterflies, thinking about checking out His Majesty's bedroom. She smiles and reminds him she's planning on getting some sleep here. A hand reaches for the doorknob, real careful, and you can feel the tension in the air. Zelda's surprised to hear she's the first woman to ever step foot in his bedroom. In the dim light, their footsteps sound extra quiet as he admits he's been looking forward to this. Linnell and Zelda are standing in front of this huge bed, and he's fighting the urge to just pull her close. She looks away, flustered, imagining how things could get pretty intense between them. Linnell gently takes her hand, but admits he can't bring himself to go any further right now. You can see the fear of rejection in his eyes. He's terrified she's going to shut him down. She's taken aback by his confession, realizing just how much he wants this. Their hands intertwine, and they both nervously acknowledge their feelings are kinda crazy. Zelda, smiling shyly, suggests they just chill and talk for a bit, and he's totally down with that. They sit down next to each other, both a little tense, not knowing where to even begin. She admits to herself that she wanted to see him so badly, she didn't even think about what they'd talk about. Linnell, unable to stand the silence, is suddenly right next to her, and their eyes meet, way too close for comfort. She blurts out that she wanted to talk, but he's already helping her take off her shoes, ignoring what she said. He gently reminds her that she just suggested talking, still holding her foot. Linnell softly kisses her foot, thinking to himself that the most real conversations happen in the bedroom. Melanie's getting all dolled up, eagerly waiting for His Majesty to arrive. One of the maids approaches her hesitantly, with some important news. The girl's anxiously hoping the Emperor will visit her tonight, but the maid starts to explain the situation. Meanwhile, the Empress is beaming, hanging out with the Emperor in the main bedroom. Hearing that, the short-haired girl freezes, totally shocked and lost. In the dim light of the room, the girl in the white dress kneels beside the man, her face showing determination and embarrassment. Blushing, she remembers when his lips accidentally brushed her thigh, and her hands tremble with excitement. The man, lying on the floor, insists he's fine, apologizing for the awkwardness and admitting he's embarrassed too. The girl, flustered and confused, anxiously addresses the man, calling him Your Majesty. She asks if he'll be visiting the Empress's chambers anymore, and his eyes widen in surprise. Linnell jumps up, his eyes burning with emotion, and challenges her, asking if she really wants this. Zelda sadly admits she messed up and decides she'll visit more often from now on. A blush creeps across her face, and her eyes reflect excitement and determination. The man looks at her intently, promising he won't stop until he's shown her how much he cares. They find themselves incredibly close, and he asks, intrigued, what the real reason for her visit is. Zelda looks away, flustered, her long hair cascading softly over her shoulders. She remembers last night and says with a touch of sadness how he left her room. Linnell gently takes her hand, wondering why she came to him in the middle of the night, despite her hesitation. A soft, understanding smile spreads across his face. He gently touches her chin, asking what he should do with her, now that she's come to his bedroom. Zelda gives him this mischievous, knowing smile, all flirty and teasing. Their lips meet in a tender kiss, full of passion and wanting. Right when things are heating up, he suddenly says her name, asking her to hold up. Zelda feels like she's lost at sea, caught in a storm of emotions and desire as he pulls her close. Suddenly, they're both thrown for a loop, totally unsure of what to do next. She gives a shy smile and suggests they just tear her sleeve. Linnell, a little flustered, decides ripping the dress isn't the move, and it's better to take it off carefully. He's about to kill the lights, trying to hide his embarrassment and set a more intimate mood. Just then, something startles him, and he asks, worried, what's going on? A guy in glasses walks into the room out of nowhere, apologizing for the interruption. He's saying Lady Melanie, the second concubine, took a tumble down the stairs, and everyone's just frozen in shock. Over in the other wing of the palace, servants are scrambling to throw open those massive doors on someone's orders. In a fancy bedroom, Melanie's laid out on the bed, and her maid is watching over her, totally freaked out. The maid's telling Melanie that His Majesty, the guy she's been waiting for, is finally here. Melanie hears that and jumps right up from the bed, all flustered and getting ready to meet him. The girl walks into the hall, looking surprised and a little nervous, her face lit up with a happy smile. Melanie's clutching her head, clearly embarrassed and confused, while these other two are watching her with different vibes. The guy, stone-faced, asks the Empress what brings her here, then figures she came because she was worried about the concubine. Zelda's laughing, thinking he's full of it, since he was the one who suggested they come together in the first place, and now he's dragging her into this mess, even though she said no. Melanie's surprised to hear there are rumors going around about her being on death's door after falling down the stairs. She's saying she was basically knocking on death's door, but she's back with us now. Melanie's admitting she totally ate it, and she's laughing it off like it's no big deal. The dark-haired chick backs her up, and she's giving us some serious attitude while she's at it. Linnell's like, how could she wipe out like that? He thought she was supposed to be all graceful and stuff. Zelda's cringing, hoping they don't drag her into this mess, and she's noticing Melanie's acting weird. The guy's checking with the maid, making sure she only tweaked her leg, and she confirms it. Zelda's figuring Melanie's always getting into these kinds of scrapes, and she's kinda shocked by it. Linnell's saying he's gonna head on back to the Empress's palace, and the blonde's giving him a little smile. The Empress is giving Melanie a warm smile, standing there surrounded by flowers. She turns to leave, but someone grabs her shoulder to stop her. The girl whips around, totally caught off guard. Melanie sees what's happening, gets worried, and turns to the Empress. Everyone notices the blonde's ripped sleeve, and she awkwardly explains what happened. Linnell jumps in, saying it's a hot new design from the Chatanil Kingdom, and the blonde smiles, relieved. The dark-haired girl is a mess. She can't believe this is happening, and her face is burning up. She hears someone telling her to chill out after that scare, and the others start heading out. The guy and the blonde leave the room, bundled up in dark cloaks, and disappear behind those fancy doors. Night falls quiet over the garden, where the lanterns flicker and the stars are shining. Zelda, flustered and lost in thought, wonders if she should head back to the main chambers. Linnell, looking dead serious, is like, why even ask that? It's a no-brainer. She's gonna be the first and last person in his bed, her golden hair soft against his shoulder as he holds her tight. Linnell can't let go, forehead to forehead, surrounded by the shimmering night blossoms. He smiles softly, knowing he's gonna want her back here again and again. Her eyes are full of emotion, looking at him with tenderness and trust. He feels like he really matters to her, and it fills him with warmth. They're sharing everything for the first time, surrounded by white flowers and a feeling of being one. Their hands intertwine, and you can feel the complete trust and surrender in that touch. Linnell's surprised by just how deep his feelings actually run. With every moment, new emotions are born, filling his heart with excitement. Every touch makes their bond stronger, and his heart starts pounding like crazy. The longer he looks at her, the more he falls for her. When Zelda meets his gaze head-on and argues with him, he feels just how much she means to him. Her pink eyes dart back and forth, flustered, a shy smile playing on her lips, hidden behind that giant sunflower. There's always something new and refreshing about her. Like every moment with Zelda is filled with springtime joy. After that first night, the cold, lonely evenings gave way to warmth and light, filling their lives with happiness. He hadn't felt this warmth and happiness in ages, and now it's coming back with her smile. He doesn't think he can go a single day without seeing Zelda. Every time she tries to hide something, Zelda gives him this guilty look, and it just gets to him, deep down. Linnell notices her shyness with a gentle smile, his gaze full of warmth and playfulness. He gently touches her face, and she closes her eyes, letting herself get lost in the moment. Their embrace tightens, and in that union, the question of true love is born. Linnell admits he wishes she'd open up to him faster, because his feelings are reaching a breaking point. In the golden glow of the flowers, their hands intertwine, and he feels like he's almost reached the peak of happiness. In the moonlight, a little girl curled up on a huge bed, as if shrouded in a shadow of loneliness. Zelda wakes up crying, pressing her hand to her head, and desperate pain echoes in her thoughts. Suddenly, a blinding golden light erupts before her, filling the room with magic and unease. The girl stares in surprise and fear at the fiery being that has finally found her. The flaming creature calls her by name, Zelda, and everything around her is illuminated by a mystical light. A voice from the light proclaims that she is destined for greatness, and destiny begins its countdown. Bright flames engulf the girl, as if penetrating to her very core. In a white void, two hands reach for each other, promising connection and support. She wakes up in her bed, struck by a strange feeling and the bright morning light. Zelda sits up, remembering the weird dream where she was consumed by fire. She's surprised that despite that, the room feels cool and fresh. Memories of the night she spent with Linnell flood back, and her heart skips a beat. The girl smiles, overflowing with tenderness and a strange premonition, surrounded by flowers and light. The young knight takes the bandage off his head, wearily lowering his sword like after a long workout. He turns to the person he's talking to, looking concerned, his eyes full of worry and attention. The older warrior points out the power in today's strike, surprised by the changes. The knight explains he's got a lot of pent-up energy, and now he's trying to unleash it. A thoughtful look crosses his face as he ponders the reasons for his relentless training. The young knight, slightly flustered, admits he's got a certain reason for pushing himself. His buddy jokes that some places get really interesting when you put in the extra effort, you know? He's like, "Wait, are we talking about the Empress?" and grips his sword hilt nervously. The knights are just busting each other's chops, talking about crazy skills and wild guesses. One of them says the Empress is definitely something else and wonders if his friend's sight came back. He replies it's just a feeling, because if his sight actually returned, things would be different. Linnell, still blindfolded, grips his sword, his resolve unwavering even in the dark. He takes off the blindfold, and surprise and a little confusion flickers in his eyes. His friend asks, totally skeptical, "Did your sight come back? How the heck did you know all that?" The head warrior thinks there's a new top-tier swordsman in the palace. He says he's been sensing a powerful aura there lately. That's why he's asking. A cautious footstep cuts through the tense silence, like a sign of things to come. Ever since the Emperor's wedding, things haven't been the same, and it's kind of freaking him out. Flashback to the Empress strolling with her companion, wondering if a master swordsman came with her. The hero's thinking maybe it's Grand Duke Martins who's this master. He pictures the Empress herself with a sword, like she's the mystery swordsman. They joke that the idea is totally out there, no way. Linnell suddenly realizes that the Empress and the swordsman are one and the same. The young man jolts awake, his body moving suddenly, like he just fell out of a dream. With the bright sun and sunflowers in bloom, the girl's smile fills the morning with lightness and joy. Bathed in light, the man sits thoughtfully at the table, his mind consumed by important news. He's shocked to learn that the Empress herself visited someone's chambers last night. The man covers his face with his hand, pondering Her Majesty's actions and thoughts. In the hall, a knight in armor anxiously asks if the Grand Duke will report everything to Prince Tesler. Against a cold blue light, a map with the Queen appears, and the question arises, isn't the Empress pushing things a bit too far? The knight, buckling his belt, remarks that the situation is unfolding in a way they didn't foresee at all. The man recalls meeting Ken, Prince Tesler's personal knight, last night. He holds a small box, which, according to Ken, the prince ordered to be delivered to Her Majesty. The man examines the jewel box with surprise, asking if there were any other instructions from the prince. Wait a sec, the knight just remembered something else. He looks kinda thrown. A cloaked figure shows up in the dark hall, delivering a message from the prince. A white-gloved hand carefully opens this mysterious box, and it's filled with magic light. The guy's sweating, realizing the Empress is gonna see right through this gift. He's hoping like hell everyone sticks to the agreed-upon rules. This armored knight is staring at whatever they're handing him, totally surprised and freaked out. This cold-faced dude wants to know what the Grand Duke's deal is with the Empress. Prince Tesler's sending a very strong message to this girl, like a threat that can't be shown to the Empress. The knight's scratching his head, trying to figure out what Prince Tesler's playing at. The guy recalls the prince didn't say a word about yesterday, and their report was squeaky clean. So what gives? His hand grips the edge of the table, and he realizes someone else is watching the Empress, not just them. The knight's worried. The prince might have sent extra people to spy. The man confirms it with a cold smile, explaining why the gift arrived so fast. One of the guys admits Prince Tesler's sharper than he thought, and asks what's the next move. Determination hardens his face as he thinks they need to turn the tables. A voice in his head says Prince Tesler's suspicious, so he'll have to play the part. He grips his sword, thinking taking over one country is a much more realistic goal. Zelda, in a fancy dress, smiles and welcomes her guests, surrounded by lovely flowers. The ladies around the tea table thank Her Majesty. The air is full of respect and light. Catherine watches thoughtfully, wondering if one of them is to blame for Linnell's absence. "Hey, Melanie, you okay? How's that leg doing?" Even after everything, Melanie's smiling. She looks so peaceful here among these purple flowers. Wait a minute. Her eyes just went wide. She's realizing something. No way, this can't be happening. Melanie's cheeks are flushed as she describes this amazing, unique design that's all the rage back home. Catherine's surprised, a little worried. "Hey, Melanie! What's with the look? Is there something wrong with how I look or something?" Her friend thinks Melanie's being a little harsh. Melanie's trying to hide how flustered she is with that smile. These two are trying to figure out if this dress is some new fashion trend. What the heck is going on? Okay, things are getting tense. One saying she's asking because Melanie showed up looking different. The other's telling her to watch her mouth. Catherine's being sarcastic, says even the clothes are reflecting His Majesty's, personality. Melanie's pissed, saying she picked out the outfit exactly how His Majesty likes it. The girl in the light dress just watches them argue, thinking it's pointless, and secretly deciding which side to take. Smiling, she easily decides to back up Melanie, saying the style is totally His Majesty's thing. Catherine, holding her cup, coldly points out that His Majesty should see the outfit himself. The conversation shifts to last night, and Melanie's surprised, saying His Majesty did visit her chambers. Catherine, still holding her cup, gives a cold smile and calls her a liar. Melanie, getting worked up but standing her ground, says she's got a witness who can back her up. Suddenly, a gloved hand points at the girl in the hat, and everyone's eyes snap to her. Catherine, surprised and wary, turns to the witness for confirmation. The girl in the light dress smiles slightly and explains that she and His Majesty visited Melanie together last night because she hurt her leg. Melanie, all tense, is double-checking if they really arrived and left together, trying to figure out what's going on. Melanie explains she asked them to leave together because she was worried about the Empress being out alone in the dark. The Empress backs her up, adding that Melanie practically begged them to escort her. Catherine says sadly that no one believes her, but admits the other woman knows Melanie better. The Empress muses, surprised, that today's tea party was pretty interesting, and wishes they could all be like this. She notices Pasolini has been quiet the whole time, even though she seems to be listening intently, and asks if she's always this quiet. Pasolini, caught off guard a little, reacts to being addressed directly. The girl, holding a teacup, admits with a small smile that she just enjoys listening to people. Someone sets a teacup down, and the Empress looks up, surprised, waiting for the conversation to continue. A majestic view of the kingdom of Chattanel unfolds before their eyes, filled with light and peace. In a lavish room, a pink-haired girl sits on the bed, intently studying a letter. An illustration pops up, a portrait of Emperor Linnell, making the girl gasp in surprise and wonder. She's stunned, because she expected some hideous dude, but instead sees a total hottie. The pink-haired girl, rocking a sparkly earring, watches what's happening with bated breath, feeling the tension build inside. She's now holding a portrait of another woman, and a snarky thought pops into her head about how that one manages to look pathetic even in a fancy dress. Her hand clenches the fabric, and a mocking comment echoes in her mind. Even without the scars, she's still her. And with that look, she can't be an empress. The girl in the blue dress abruptly lets go of the hem, and something sharp clatters to the floor, breaking the silence of the room. The woman's gaze is veiled in shadow, and a gloating thought appears. Finally, Zelda Fontrova's true colors are showing. With an icy smile and a steely glare, the pink-haired girl turns to Zelda, ready for the final showdown. Someone's thinking about wanting to see Emperor Linnell's face when he comes face-to-face with the heroine's true nature, while the man himself watches it all unfold from among the white flowers, a cold smile playing on his lips. "Take care of yourself," one of the girls says, bowing her head in farewell. The redhead turns and calls out her friend's name, watching her leave. She looks tired, remembering when she was asked about an interesting book she'd found. The concubine smiles, saying she's recently started reading a captivating book that's totally absorbed her. Zelda asks, intrigued, what this book is that's keeping her friend up all night, and the redhead pauses to think. The girl recalls studying healing magic from magic books since childhood and guesses it's a book about magic. Zelda says she wants to see this book her friend loves so much and offers to come over, since there are too many books to carry. The redhead is thrilled by the offer, promising to get everything ready for her visit. Suddenly, a new character appearing grabs the blonde's attention. Grand Duke Martins appears before the girls, greeting them with utmost politeness. The concubine's surprised by his politeness, noticing the Duke's acting different, 'cause Rosie's around. She asks what brings the Duke here, and he starts to answer, looking a little flustered. The Duke says he brought a gift for Her Majesty, and the girl's taken aback by that. The guy clarifies the gifts from the royal house of Chattanel, pulling it out of his inside pocket. He hands over the little box, explaining it's a present from Prince Tesler. Zelda, sitting on the throne, takes the gift and decides to check it out before they keep talking. With a serious look, she opens the box, wondering what's so important the prince could have sent. Cracking it open, she notices this weird energy coming from inside and is like, "What the heck?" Zelda's all surprised, realizing what she's looking at is a box made with ice and fire magic. Inside, she spots a ring with a pink diamond, which just raises even more questions for her. Her eyes tighten as the weight of what she's found hits her. The Duke starts explaining that the stuff inside the box is super important. He suggests we figure out who this thing belongs to, saying it's a big deal. Just then, another girl asks why she's bailing so suddenly, and she apologizes to her. Zelda clenches her fist, sadly saying she can't come back for a while, promising to explain everything later. She holds out a ring to her friend, saying she doesn't need it anymore. The friend's shocked, not believing she can really be trusted with such a valuable ring with a pink diamond. Zelda explains it's a birthday gift from Prince Tesler from 2 years ago and asks her to hold on to it just in case. The girls hold hands tightly, and one of them silently hopes the ring will be there in her place. Left alone, the blonde hangs her head, hiding what she's feeling. Zelda, eyes blazing, hand raised, demands answers, her voice full of authority and worry. The guy's totally thrown, realizing he's staring down Bonus's finger, and he can't hide his shock. The staff's point presses against his throat, while someone begs Her Majesty to chill out. Zelda, icy and determined, refuses to be calmed down, her face a mask of anger and pain. The guy's scrambling, saying he doesn't know anything, just passed along a box someone gave him. He's thinking, why would Prince Tesler do this? And figures it was a warning shot. Zelda's getting worried, realizing the prince is starting to sweat, and she doesn't know why. A moment of intimacy with a certain someone flashes in her mind, and she figures that's what's got him spooked. She's doubting herself, wondering if Tesler knows everything. The guy, still trying to explain, guesses that she's being blamed for leaking info to the prince, and that's why they sent the message. He admits he got the report about their night together from his people, but swears he didn't start the rumors. Zelda, with sadness and understanding, realizes the fallout from what they did. The guy's worried sick. Someone beat him to the punch telling the prince, and now he's not sure if the prince trusts him or sent a spy. Zelda gets it. There are other eyes and ears in the imperial palace besides his. She imagines a traitor, someone who might be right there in her inner circle. She's freaking out, wondering if the prince will decide to take Bonus out. A voice in her head says Bonus is safe for now, but the danger is still hanging around. A guy appears through the swirling smoke with a cold smile, hinting that trouble's brewing. Zelda's standing alone in the hall, head down, fists clenched in despair, a sword lying on the floor nearby. She drops to her knees, realizing Bonus is in danger because of her screw-ups and her failing to handle things. Tears stream down her face, regrets changing nothing now, and all she wants is to know Bonus is safe. Clenching her fist, she decides she can't give up this easily, no matter how hopeless it feels. Determination sparks in her eyes. First, she needs to find the spy Prince Tesler sent. She remembers that revenge takes patience and prepares herself for a long fight. The armored man sighs in relief, glad his instincts were right, and studies the girl in front of him. Zelda spins around, cautiously asking who's there, reminding them that using the training grounds without the commander's permission is forbidden. A weapon appears in the stranger's hand, and the girl realizes he's not one of her knights. In a lavish hall, nobles gather around a round table, discussing the recent end of the war and the upcoming intercontinental hunting tournament, wondering if the people deserve a break. One of them points out that no matter how much they talk, His Majesty has the final say. A thought occurs that after 10 years, the Wyverns have finally decided to cooperate, and after so much war, It's time for peace and harmony. Ancient legend says whoever controls the wyvern egg rules the continents, and now there's a chance to unite the South and North continents. For years, they were at each other's throats, with wyverns soaring overhead, a constant reminder of the old grudges. 10 years back, before the war even started, all the countries gathered for an intercontinental hunting tournament, where the fate of the world could have changed. Mysterious figures meet in the snowy haze, their goal to size each other up. Linnell, in his dress uniform, reads a letter, thinking about how the war's over, but the tournament hasn't happened in 5 years. Then this invite pops up out of nowhere. The emperor of the Tabello Empire, lurking in the shadows, is convinced the wyverns will return. But his real play is to sniff out his rival's weaknesses. A hand slams on the table, and someone says if this tournament can stop another war, there's nothing more to talk about. The key is seeing how the other countries react. An advisor reports that the offer's accepted, and Emperor Tabello announced that the second prince, Calvin Asselman, will also be competing. A woman in a fancy dress, surrounded by white roses, hears that important guests will be arriving in the Raffian Empire soon. The emperor smirks, saying the Empress will be thrilled to hear about the Chatanel kingdom. The map shows the race route, starting in the Raffian Empire and ending in the Pacha Empire on the southern continent. The emperor's face turns serious. They've got to prepare properly for their guests of honor. A white-gloved hand clenches a pocket watch. Time suddenly feels super important as they wait for things to kick off. The emperor announces a 10-minute recess, giving everyone a little time to think things over. In the opulent hall, a man in full dress uniform strides quickly toward his companion, his steps firm and determined. The young man with the icy gaze turns his attention to the newcomer, his face a mask of composure and inner strength. Surrounded by purple roses and intricate designs, Duke Kalios asks the question, his eyes filled with anxious anticipation. The Duke carefully brings up a sensitive point, mentioning the harem palace has been neglected since the ceremony. The young man responds calmly to the remark, contemplating fairness and peace within the palace walls. In a crazy scene, he sarcastically asks the Duke if he's ever gotten any affection from him, and the Duke's totally thrown for a loop. The young guy, stone-cold look on his face, challenges the other dude, basically calling his ideas about fairness and kindness total BS. Duke Kalios stammers, trying to explain himself, but gets hit with a question that completely stumps him. The emperor, not wanting to keep talking, tells him he can leave, but the Duke's desperate and tries to argue. The Duke shouts that if all the good stuff only goes to the Empress, things are gonna go sideways in the palace, and his hands inching towards his sword. Elsewhere, a knight in armor gives the blonde kid a suspicious look, realizing he's not one of their guys. The pink-eyed girl, trying to keep it together, tells herself to stay calm. In the dark hall, the girl hopes that as long as it's dark, no one will recognize her. She watches the guy coming closer, all tense, worried that if he gets any closer, she's busted. A voice in her head warns her that the guy's blind, but she can't let her guard down because he's a master swordsman. The girl clutches her chest, feeling the tension building up inside. The man notices her alone, practicing with a sword in the dark on the Imperial training grounds, and braces for a possible fight. She decides now's not the time to think about the voice. If the enemy points a sword at her, she'll have to defend herself. The armored man thinks he can't let her find out about his real position, but he already realizes she's a foreigner. His gaze sharpens, trying to figure out who's standing before him in the darkness. Zelda grips the sword hilt, and a thought flashes through his mind. Could she be someone special? In a funny twist, they both suddenly realize they're facing the Empress's escort knight, and surprise is plastered on their faces. The man admits he didn't expect the Emperor to react so fast, noting that the escort was beefed up because of concerns. Zelda gratefully thanks him, relieved, trying to hide her agitation and not give away her true identity. Macrom, the honorary knight commander, introduces himself and asks her name, and the girl freezes, hesitant. She looks away, struggling to find the words, and a tense silence fills the room. The guy with the scar smiles, calls himself Bonus, and everyone seems to dig the name. The girl gives him a surprised look, but the conversation gets cut short. A maid pops her head in, looking worried, asking if anyone's shown up. Zelda says she's got to bounce, says Her Majesty's been looking for her, and the commander totally gets it. The girl, cheeks flushed, turns back for a goodbye, her eyes full of determination and a little worry amidst all the fancy flowers. In the dead of night, the maid grabs the girl's arm, freaked out, saying trouble's coming, and the girl's face instantly drops. In his dress uniform, all decked out in gold, the man gets urgent news that His Majesty's already headed to the palace. In the darkness, someone's tearing through the forest on horseback, racing through the night. The flustered maid bursts into the room, yelling at her to hurry up. Two girls are rushing out of the room, talking about the Emperor's arrival and scrambling to hide. One of them is freaking out, thinking everyone's going to find out about her secret training and complaining about having too many secrets. She explains she wasn't expecting the Emperor back because of his late-night meeting, but thanks the Chamberlain for the heads up. Zelda, barely back, is just dreaming of a quick shower, but the maid insists there's no time for that. The flustered maid urges the girl to get to the bedroom, feeling the pressure mounting. Zelda sheepishly takes the nightgown from the maid, getting ready for bed. She quickly jumps into bed, burying her face in the pillow and pulling up the covers. The Emperor enters the room, his presence thick with tension. The maid, nervous, reports that the Empress is already asleep, explaining she's not feeling well. The Emperor decides to take care of his wife himself, dismissing the maid, and the girl, holding her breath, pretends to be asleep. The Empress is laid out on the bed, and the Emperor sitting beside her, watching over her. He gently touches her hair, noticing it's damp with sweat, and realizes her fever's still going strong. There's clothes scattered on the floor, and he's surprised she's sleeping without anything on, guessing it's from the heat. The Emperor figures there's nothing else for it, and starts undressing to lie down next to her, while she's relieved thinking he's leaving, believing she's asleep. He leans in close, determined to cool her fever with his own body. Their lips are getting closer, and she's flustered, wondering what she should do next. Their lips are almost touching, and she mentally commands herself not to open her eyes and give herself away. Overcome with embarrassment and desire, she admits to herself that she can't hold back her feelings anymore. The Emperor looks at her, surprised, trying to figure out when she woke up. In a totally awkward scene, they both stammer out excuses, explaining their waking up and the whole weird situation. He says he was trying to cool her fever down, and she admits, relieved, that she's already feeling better. Zelda, flustered, asks him to just lie down next to her, so they're both more comfortable. The Emperor smiles, admitting he's not feeling so hot himself now, even though she's doing better. He leans in close, confessing he's been craving her lips all day. Passion takes over, and he gently pulls her close, lost in the kiss. Zelda weakly scolds him for taking advantage of a sick person, but her eyes betray her desire. She admits to herself that she doesn't want to stop, even though she's embarrassed and excited. Her eyes are filled with longing, and he says he can't resist when she looks at him like that. The lovers embrace, lost in tenderness and adoration. They lie side by side under the covers, enjoying each other's warmth and closeness. Remembering some advice, he mentally reminds himself to keep his feelings for His Majesty in check. Zelda thinks with relief that she can allow herself to be genuine when they are alone. Linnell asks anxiously if she could ask him for a favor. Pressing close to his chest, she asks him not to show too much affection when others are watching. He looks tenderly at his beloved, wondering if he should hide his feelings despite her worries. Zelda admits that her reason sounds weak, but still shares her concerns. A light, warm atmosphere arises between them, and he agrees that sometimes he wants to grant requests even without a reason. He promises he'll be reserved, but only for a little while, so he doesn't embarrass her. She smiles, feeling relief and joy at his words. Meanwhile, in another room, a girl sits by the bed in the lamplight, engrossed in reading a story. This girl's flipping through some ancient book, got a dragon on the cover, trying to crack the code of the old Pacha Empire language. She's getting all ticked off at this mysterious egg, yelling at it to hatch already, then just slumps down, exhausted, touching the basket. Inside the basket is this huge, dark egg, and it's twitching like crazy, which is kind of freaking her out and making her wonder what's up. She's wondering if this egg really has been chilling for 300 years, like her mom said, and she's giving it the side eye, not really buying it. She's back to the book now, thinking about that weird mark on the Empress's cheek. The book's got a picture of some dude with dragons, and the girl's all, wait, that scar-looking thing is actually important? Zelda, rocking a dark cloak, is lost in thought, wondering if she messed something up back at the clinic. The egg starts rolling all over the floor, scaring the crap out of her, and she's freaking out, telling it to keep it down so the servants don't wake up. The girl's staring at the egg, looking worried, admitting she has no clue how it's connected to the Empress, but begging it to just hang in there a little longer. Departure time's coming up fast, and someone's got a death grip on that suitcase, because the prince and princess are about to head out to the Rapian Empire. The carriage servant is making sure everything's packed for the big trip. The prince and princess show up in front of the fancy castle, greeted by a sea of roses. The prince's face gets serious. You can see the determination in his eyes. The princess looks surprised and a little flustered, remembering they actually let her come along. The prince jokingly warns her not to cause any trouble or try to get on the emperor's good side, which ticks her off. The prince confidently steps into the carriage, thinking that keeping quiet and composed is already half the battle. The princess, a little annoyed, plops down in her seat, thinking her looks alone are enough to turn heads. She remembers the main thing is to impress Emperor Linnell, and someone advised her to watch Zelda's moves. Inside the carriage, the prince and princess start bickering about whether she should copy Zelda, since only a crazy person would fall for someone like her. The prince smirks and points out that crazy person is the one she needs to win over. The Rapian Empire's majestic palace gleams in the sun, welcoming new guests. An elegant woman appears in the luxurious hall, and everyone knows Her Majesty the Empress has arrived. Distinguished guests gather around the long table, the atmosphere thick with anticipation and tension. The Empress notes with a light smile that everyone is already here, and expresses her pleasure at not being late. There could be spies of Prince Tesler hidden among those present, and that thought is unsettling. One of the men, smiling sheepishly, addresses Zelda. The Empress remarks that everyone arrived early to see her, but she appears precisely on time, maintaining her dignity. Zelda is surprised by the man's coldness, thinking they were asked not to show too much affection, but no one said he had to be so distant. The man looks on with a smug grin, and it seems he's getting a little too into his role. The advisor suggests hearing the explanations first, then discussing the situation, and receives agreement. A fearsome wyvern soars in the sky, and the annual hunting tournament's been put on hold thanks to this war with the beasts. The southern continent proposed bringing back the tournament this year, and the Rapian Empire officially agreed, sending letters to every country. The map shows the Rapian Empire as the starting point, and the whole route from start to finish will be closely monitored. The Empress is watching everything with excitement and a hidden thrill, finding it all incredibly interesting. She dreams of joining the hunt, but remembers that ancient traditions forbid women from participating, and it bums her out a little. One of the ladies excitedly mentions the Parsha Empire, and the Empress reacts, surprised by her enthusiasm. She wonders why this girl is so interested in the hunt and so happy about it. Could she know someone in Parsha? The Empress notes that it's unusual this time that not just emperors, but empresses from all countries want to visit the empire. The man confirms that things used to be different, but now everyone suddenly decided to get involved in the event. Zelda, in a lavish dress with flowers in her hair, looks off to the side with surprise and worry, her face showing confusion. She quickly pulls herself together, trying to stay calm and keep the conversation going, even though she's freaking out inside. Catherine finds out that the empresses and consorts from the southern continent are going to be in the hunt, and her eyes narrow. Hearing the news, she jumps up, totally shocked and not believing what she just heard. Zelda watches her reaction, realizing that what she just said completely changed the vibe in the room. Against a fancy background, there's a woman with a sword on horseback, and it's clear the southern women, unlike the northerners, know how to handle weapons. A young guy with red hair and glasses is thinking about maybe joining this thing, and he seems pretty into it. Two girls are worried, saying that the new tournament rules might be a way to put the northern continent down. Catherine admits, a little embarrassed, that she can't ride a horse, and feels like she's the only one happy about the changes. With darkness and a sword in the background, it's obvious the tournament isn't just a hunt, it's a battlefield for alliances, betrayals, and keeping tabs on each other. Makes you wonder if the northern empresses can even participate. I mean, Queen Shadanila's getting up there in years. They say Empress Eki is like a hothouse flower, hinting she's too delicate for the tough times ahead. Linnell's taken aback by the Empress saying she wants to join the hunt. The Empress explains with poise that she's been riding since she was a kid and knows what she's doing. The guy's skeptical, pointing out riding's one thing, hunting's another, and this ain't no picnic. The Empress figures if the northern empresses and consorts bail on the tournament, it'll be a huge embarrassment for their country. Linnell's worried about what could happen to the Empress. He doesn't want her risking it all against those southern women. The Empress steels herself, ready to explain why she can't back down. One of the purple-haired women admits, keeping it cool, that the concubines are way better at hosting than she is, catching everyone off guard. In the fancy hall, the redhead suggests cautiously that maybe the Empress doesn't have to hunt beasts, if her goal is just to smooth things over with the southern empresses. Zelda, with flowers in her hair, smiles and agrees, saying you can learn the basics of archery before the tournament, especially with His Majesty's help. This dude's sweating bullets, hoping his arguments are enough to change Linnell's mind. You can see the tension all over his face. The Emperor, trying to keep it cool, tells the Empress she's acting reckless, clenching his fist. She's all wide-eyed and worried. Emperor's clearly ticked off. He tells the Empress to come with him, reminding her not to raise her voice around the concubines, save everyone the awkwardness. In this fancy hall, a servant's watching the drama unfold, totally freaked, while these two ladies at the table look stressed and lost. Zelda, rocking a killer dress, is staring at this guy, all surprised and anxious. He's obviously got a bee in his bonnet. Out of nowhere, this guy smacks her across the face. She flinches, eyes squeezed shut, cheek burning red. He steps closer, and suddenly there's this intense, almost intimate vibe between them. Linnell leans in for a kiss, and she's blushing, totally flustered. Can't hide how she feels. They're alone now, faces close, and you can cut the tension with a knife. Zelda, embarrassed, reminds him about the people outside and their agreement to keep things PG in public. Linnell, cool as a cucumber, just says he did what she asked. The Emperor's got this sly grin, like he's totally amused by what's going down. He says he's only showing affection when nobody's looking, because that's what she wanted. These two ladies are freaking out about what the Empress just did, worried about the fallout. Linnell points out that all the commotion will keep people from suspecting anything, and she nervously agrees. Zelda, looking stunning in her gown, is getting anxious as this dude walks up to her, wondering what he's after. The Emperor leans in close amidst the roses, smiling sweetly as he tells her he's here to collect what he's owed. He reminds her she got to enter the tournament, and now he wants what he thinks is his, holding tight to her hand. Zelda, blushing hard, tries to get Linnell to wait until tonight, but he's not having it. He says right now is the perfect time, and he looks at her with this intense, loving look. After that awkward moment, they get back to business. He wraps up the meeting, and she's still flustered. Red-haired Rosie turns around, noticing something unsettling, while another girl walks away in the background. Zelda, in a gorgeous dress, reacts with surprise and a touch of worry when someone calls out to her. Rosie, looking anxious, admits she stayed because she was worried about the Empress and His Majesty's fight. The Empress smiles, saying there's nothing to worry about. They worked things out, and the redhead looks relieved. Zelda, a little flustered, invites the redhead to her place, adding that she doesn't have to if she's not comfortable. The concubine gratefully accepts the invitation, her face lighting up with a genuine smile and a hint of shyness. Zelda, beaming, offers to show her guest the way, looking forward to spending some quality time together. Suddenly, fear and confusion wash over the girl's face as she's confronted with an unexpected situation. In a lavish room overflowing with books, there's surprise and bewilderment at the mess. Rosie smiles, explaining that she decided not to touch anything because cleaning up never seemed to make a difference. Zelda's all like, seriously, how can you live in this mess? But the redhead's insisting she's got her own system. This weird, huge thing just appears on the floor, and Zelda's totally thrown for a loop. The Empress is watching all this go down, kinda amused and a little surprised. Out of nowhere, this massive, strange object shows up on the floor, right there among the flowers and books, and everyone's scratching their heads. Zelda cautiously picks up the mysterious thing, guessing it might be an ostrich egg. She grins and asks if the egg's for her, and Rosie, looking kinda flustered, says yeah. They're joking around, wondering if they should crack it open right then and there, but they're still not sure what it even is. Rosie admits she's not sure what kind of egg it is, 'cause that's just what the guy who gave it to her said. Zelda gently touches the weird egg, noticing the shell feels different than an ostrich egg, and then sparks start flying off it. The Empress is like, dude, that thing just moved! But her friend didn't see a thing. The concubines all smiles, swearing the egg actually moved, like something's trying to hatch inside. Rosie, changing the subject, offers some lemon cake, and the blonde's totally up for it, saying she's starving. Just then, the egg starts glowing and cracking, like something crazy's about to pop out. A tiny creature with wings and horns peeks out of the shell, winking mischievously at its new owners. The little dragon pops right out of the shell, wondering why he spent 300 years in that thing. He's determined to ditch that shell, hurrying to get out and be free. The little dragon clumsily faceplants onto the floor, feeling that first sting of the real world. Looking around, he peeks out from under a blanket, searching for his owner with curiosity and a little worry. Peeking from behind the door, the little dragon finally spots who he's looking for, happily watching her. Zelda, with a sweet smile and rosy cheeks, greets her unusual pet, holding a cup of tea in her hand. Linnell, decked out in his dress uniform, holds the letter, lost in thought about his doubts. But sensing big changes are coming, memories flood back to the mercenary who once bolted with Princess Lucilia, leaving a trail of unanswered questions. Turns out that mercenary wasn't just some runaway, but the third prince of the South Continent's most powerful empire, by the name of Norton Asselman. The prince, barely recovered, sent a letter to the palace, announcing he'd be arriving soon. Linnell smiles slightly, figuring the prince is showing him some trust. In the hall, they're saying Prince Tesler actually sent Princess Lucilia to the Raffion Palace to get Emperor Linnell's attention, even before the tournament started. The gray-eyed knight worries about Prince Norton and Princess Lucilia crossing paths at the tournament, remembering the prince's cold look when her name came up. The young aristocrat smirks, convinced a clash is unavoidable, and decides to help them meet just for the sheer entertainment of it. In a funny bit, they're talking about how this could mess up Tesler's plans to set the emperor up with a second marriage. The knight gets the job of keeping tabs on Prince Tesler to sniff out his spy, and he's all in on the assignment. The nobleman turns, like he's about to drop some serious knowledge, figuring out his next move. Just then, Prince Norton steps out of the shadows by the palace, and everyone's holding their breath waiting for him. In the palace's dark gardens, the girl carefully leads her horse, hidden amongst the pines under the night sky. She smiles, relieved, feeling the tension finally start to fade away. Zelda figures Linnell's stuck in meetings till late, so she's betting she can slip back from the training grounds unnoticed. Once she's in the inner courtyard, she spots some unfamiliar weapons and wonders what's up, guessing they're prepping for the hunter tournament. Grinning, she realizes she's in the competition too, and she's stoked to finally get a break from her duties. The Empress grabs her sword, looking forward to facing her rivals in the hunt, when she spots someone coming, realizing their paths are crossing again. Zelda, sword in hand, turns around, recognizing the face, and her eyes show surprise and a little bit of happiness. Commander Macrome appears before her, smiling warmly, confirming it's really him. The palace archway lamp comes on tonight, light glinting off white gloves, and someone's asking about training outside. This pale girl with pink eyes, kinda tense, turns to the guy, wondering why she's so worked up before the hunter tournament. In a goofy way, the knight cheers her on, reminding her she's gotta protect the Empress from those sassy southern girls. Against the night sky, the girl looks surprised as the knight talks about the southern country ruled by the Empress, mentioning how powerful the Delroy Empire is. An old map shows the Empress and Delroy knights are famous for their guts, and the question pops up, what about the other empires? A dude with long silver hair, surrounded by flowers, holds a shining light as the story goes on about how tight the Tabello Empire is with the northern continent. The girl remembers one of the princes was totally against war between the continents, and she's heard about the arguments between the Pacha Empire heirs. The conversation makes it clear that the second prince, Kelvin, was picked as heir, and the Empress's first son was out of the running. Kelvin had to fight like crazy to get the ministers on his side. Zelda, looking puzzled, asks the commander why he suddenly started whispering. In the quiet night, a new figure shows up, and it sounds like the reason for the change in the conversation has something to do with hey, him. Commander's cracking up, wondering why you guys are still hanging around. Out from the flowers, and under the archway, struts Prince Norton, all cloaked up with a sly grin. This cloaked kid gives a little bow, introduces himself as Norton Asselman from the Pacha Empire. Zelda's sweating it, wondering why this dude showed up early. The other guests aren't due for another week. The knight introduces Norton to Bonus, who's with Her Majesty, and Norton's all kinds of surprised. Norton's staring down the knight Bonus, and there's something real weird in his eyes. Zelda's thinking, does this mystery prince even know me? Things are getting complicated, that's for sure. In the throne room, with those fancy chairs in the background, Someone's thinking things just got real, but it's not a crisis. Yet, Zelda's looking down, all worried and unsure, feeling the pressure building up inside. She's thinking, can't exactly call myself Empress with Commander Macromie around. Then the knight tells the prince it's late, suggesting he head back to his room. After hesitating, she decides that if the prince is headed to the palace, she'll go with him. The prince smiles slightly and says it would be his honor. Zelda feels incredibly awkward walking beside him. She knows she needs to talk to him before they get back to the palace, and steels herself to do it now. Zelda and the prince walk through the night forest, and she asks him about the upcoming hunters tournament, to which he replies with a slight affirmative smile. The prince admits there's a particular beast he's especially eager to hunt, and a mysterious glint appears in his eye. Zelda notices the irony in his words and feels a growing tension, trying to figure out his real intentions. She's caught off guard when the prince suddenly addresses her as Your Majesty, and a wave of anxiety washes over her. Shock flashes in her eyes as she realizes the prince might know who she really is. Zelda clenches her fist, lost in speculation about when he figured out her identity, and asks him to repeat himself, just to be sure she heard right. The prince admits she might not know him, but he's seen her around Chatanel a few times, and she looks away, flustered. Zelda's surprised he remembered her out of everyone in the kingdom, and tries to figure out why. In a flashback, the prince is in armor among the kingdom's hired knights, hiding his true identity. He explains he left his home empire of Pacha because of a power struggle, hid his background, and traveled around working as a mercenary knight, including in Chatanel. Zelda anxiously asks how he found out she became Empress, and worry flickers in her eyes. She wonders why, knowing her, the prince pretended he was meeting her for the first time, and he looks at her with a knowing smile against the backdrop of the night palace. The prince explains he noticed Commander Macrom was clueless and figured she was hiding her identity, which makes her blush. He confesses he had some doubts, since her current look is different from how he remembered her in the kingdom. The prince says he understands her reasons, since he hid his own status for a long time, and she smiles in relief. Zelda's surprised she didn't even get a chance to speak, and the prince smiles, guessing she was going to ask him to play dumb in front of His Majesty. He swears he'll grant her wish, and their hands brush for a second under the starry sky. The prince gently kisses her hand, promising that when they meet tomorrow, everything will be just as she wants. In the flower-decked hall, the order is given to greet the guest as if it's their first encounter. On the throne, side by side, sit a man in full dress uniform and a girl in a light dress, both looking composed and tense. A little flustered, a girl named Zelda wants to say something important before meeting Prince Norton. With a serious look, Lenille remarks that the men of the southern continent are rough and cocky, just like they look. Zelda, confused, remembers meeting the prince in the dark and doubts he was anything like they describe him. In a funny moment, the guy assures her that compared to the others, she'll see he's a total catch, so it's not all bad. Zelda's not worried about the prince's looks, but about his promise to pretend they're strangers. Standing before the massive palace doors, she silently begs Prince Norton to keep his word. In the hall, a guy in full dress uniform is reacting to all this with surprise and tension. The guests dropping to one knee, wishing glory and prosperity on the Raffian Empire. Blondie here greets him and Her Majesty with a smile, showing respect and making this feel like a real occasion. Zelda's stoked someone's actually keeping their word. She's got this little smile going on. Linnell, all decked out in his dress uniform, is looking stressed and doubtful, wondering who this guy even is. Norton, in his fancy getup, is surprised to confirm that, yeah, he's really the prince of the Pacha Empire. These two are cracking jokes about how weird this is, like, shouldn't someone look different? This dude with the icy stares going on about how uncouth and disrespectful the guys from the southern continent are. Zelda decides they gotta change the subject, like right now, to cut the tension. Things are getting awkward for these three, and the girl's starting to second-guess what she said. The prince, looking a little flustered, admits he's flattered. The dark-haired guy, face turning red, blurts out the girl's name. A new guy walks up to them, saying Prince Norton needs to confirm he's in the tourney. The prince gives an apologetic smile, says he can't make it to tea, and asks to be excused. The dark-haired dude, surprised and worried, turns to the girl, trying to figure out what she just said. Zelda backpedals, saying her compliment was just being polite to an honored guest, and the guy sulks, saying that guys like him really need the boost. She smiles, trying not to laugh and blushing a little. Linnell, turning red, admits that's exactly right. Zelda, grinning, confesses that's how he looked to her. A small, satisfied smile spreads across the young man's face. He's a little flustered, starts thinking out loud, and you can see his mood lift. There are two sitting on the throne, and the girl asks with a smile if she's loved just for her looks, while the guy gives a sheepish grin. Zelda, with her pink eyes, looks at him with tenderness and joy, telling him she knows he's a stand-up guy. The Empress, head bowed, silently begs forgiveness for her lies and prays for the happiness of the one who trusts her. Wrapped in each other's arms on a fancy bed, the guy gently asks how she's feeling, and she smiles shyly, snuggling closer. Zelda's surprised that even when he says nice things, they still sound kinda distant. She admits, with a little sadness, that she's always been with a man who's emotionally unavailable. Zelda says with a sweet smile that she warms his body every night, while he just looks at her, all serious and reserved. She remembers how his hand always stays warm, and how she feels refreshed and calm because of him. Surrounded by dark roses and a crown, she's hit with a wave of worry. How long can this last if the truth comes out? She pictures this pink-haired chick in her head, and the thought of Linnell meeting Lucilia just freaks her out even more. Word's out that the Chatanel Kingdom's crew just rolled up to the Imperial Palace, and it's got our girl all kinds of anxious and worked up. Lucilia pops into the hall with this mysterious smile, like she's about to stir up some serious trouble. This blonde in the fancy dress is all about Raphion's endless glory, where the sun always shines, apparently. The silver-haired dude in the dress uniform officially welcomes the bigwigs from Raphion on behalf of the Kingdom of Chatanel. This girl with the long pink hair and sweet smile, surrounded by flowers, introduces herself as Lucilia Hale. Lucilia, with her sparkling blue eyes, greets him in her highness of Raphion. All calm and collected. In this huge hall, at a table piled high with food, a guy in uniform and a blonde are hosting, saying it's been too long. The silver-haired guy gives a tight little smile, and someone's already thinking they need to have a private chat with him, no matter what. The blonde girl is shocked and worried when she hears her name. She's totally freaked out. Cecily, all smiles, remarks that the Empress is barely recognizable these days. A guy in a fancy uniform asks, all curious, if they know each other and how they became friends with the Empress. The girl just freezes up, trying to answer. The Empress repeats the word friends to herself, sad and doubtful. You can see the inner turmoil on her face. In her memories, she admits her humble beginnings, how she grew up around the royal kids. Zelda, a total mess of tears, remembers how she used to genuinely dream of friendship and being accepted. The Empress, laughing and blushing, says she's been hanging around the palace since she was a kid and feels like almost a sister to the Empress. A look of determination flashes in her eyes when she hears a question she wasn't expecting. Cecily barely hides her annoyance, wondering how this woman dares to speak like that. Princess Cecily offers the guests some coffee with a smile, saying it just arrived. A cup with a delicate vanilla foam is offered to the Empress, and she's asked to give it a try. Princess Lucilia's savoring that coffee, saying the foam's especially on point today. She's got this radiant smile, totally digging the fancy vanilla flavor. The golden-haired girl's heart just skipped a beat. You can see the butterflies on her face. Someone's gently stirring that coffee with a spoon, and you can just feel things are about to change. This young dude in full dress uniform is watching all this, clearly intrigued by her unique coffee ritual. Lucilia's caught off guard, a little flustered. Her eyes are wide. She gives a bashful smile, explaining her love for vanilla foam coffee, and the guy's thoughtfully trying it now. Lucilia, with a sweet smile, hands over the cup and tells him to sip slowly, making it all cozy and caring. The man, with his ice-cold stare, slowly brings the cup to his lips. The tension is thick. She's blushing as she mentions how the queen's eyes are the same color as her hair. Zelda, those pink eyes narrowed, is really trying to figure out what's really being said. The guy at the table's just chillin', sipping his coffee, while Blondie's laughing way too hard, trying to play it cool. The man just confirms the resemblance, doesn't even look up from his cup. Lucilia's twirling a strand of hair, lost in thought about how untouchable the queen is, like she's made of glass. The pink-haired girl smiles, letting him gently touch her hair, surrounded by all those roses. Zelda, still looking suspicious, is like, okay, what is actually going on here? The fancy cup slowly rises, and you can just feel the anticipation of what he's about to say. Just a light touch, hand to hand, and suddenly there's this electric tension between them. The dark-haired dude, looking right at Blondie, admits he's perfectly happy just being able to see the Empress every day. Lucilia, a little flustered, asks, "Okay, where are you going with this?" Linnell lifts his cup with a slight smile, musing that you can touch someone with just a look. The girl stays silent, gently biting her lip, unsure how to respond. She quickly pulls herself together, smiling at how romantic he's being. Zelda watches it all unfold, surprised by this unexpected turn of events, since guys usually fall for her act. Lucilia is floored that this twice-married dude isn't even giving her the time of day. The man stares intently at the Empress, waiting for her answer to his question. Linnell leans towards the girl with a gentle smile, and she blushes shyly under his gaze amidst the blooming roses. The girl lowers her eyes, carefully taking a sip from the porcelain cup, trying to hide her nervousness. Linnell looks at her, surprised by her reaction. Zelda's suddenly distracted, hearing someone call out, and turns around, slightly surprised. So, in a kind of funny moment, the dude notices she's got a little something on her lip, and she's totally embarrassed. Zelda, blushing hard, covers her mouth, realizing how awkward it is, and asks for a tissue to clean it up. Linnell gently touches the girl's lips, and you can feel the tension building between them. The pink-haired girl is completely stunned by what's happening, her eyes wide with surprise and embarrassment. The dark-haired guy smiles, enjoying the moment and commenting on the taste. Zelda, mortified, hides her mouth with her hand, realizing the situation is just getting weirder. The gray-eyed guy with the creepy smile and the snake behind him gives off bad vibes, like you gotta watch your back. The guy in the fancy uniform calmly sips his tea, thinking about how rare it is to make a move, and apologizing for being so bold. The gray-eyed guy stares ahead, totally shocked and worried, not expecting things to go down like this. Lucilia and the guy in the dress uniform laugh, talking about how reserved the Empress has been since she was a kid. Linnell's relieved to hear confirmation that the Empress has always been like this, and the blonde smiles beside him. The guy thanks them for letting him enjoy the vanilla foam, a happy smile lighting up his face. Lucilia's gaze turns cold and thoughtful, a feeling of unease growing in her heart. The white carriage slowly rolls out of the mansion gates, its wheels creaking on the cobblestones. Lucilia shouts in frustration, not understanding what drew the man's attention to someone else, and she's furious about what he did. The silver-haired guy asks, bewildered, how anyone could even think of acting like that. Lucilia wonders, in a kind of funny way, if maybe someone slipped him something, because she can't explain his weird behavior otherwise. Linnell looks at her with tenderness, making the girl confused and jealous. Caught up in their feelings, the guy and girl start bickering, trading barbs, but the irritation doesn't fade. Lucilia asks them to find a potion to change her eye color, to hide the resemblance to someone else, and insists her eyes must become black, so no one recognizes her. A tall dude strides into the hall, cutting off the argument and demanding everyone shut up with the pointless chatter. The blonde guy in the fancy suit introduces himself with a slight smile, all class and confidence. Lucilia ducks behind her companion, fighting back her annoyance and embarrassment. Suddenly, she loses her balance, her face showing a mix of fear and confusion. The prince catches her smoothly, saving her from a spill and showing he cares. She thanks him for the save, and he replies with a smile, saying he couldn't just stand by while she stumbled. Lucilia stares at him, surprised to hear him mention his recent tumble from way up high. The young guy with violet eyes casually says it was nothing serious, hiding how he really feels. In a lavish bedroom, two people lie close, their faces almost touching, the air thick with tenderness and intimacy. Lucilia smiles as her face gently brushes against her lover's hand, and blue flowers bloom all around, whispering the name Lechi. Against a backdrop of shimmering flowers and a dude's bare chest, someone confesses their love. The guy's face gets serious when he hears the question about being a prince of the Pacha Empire. Lucilia gives a sheepish smile, making excuses and looking away when they ask if she had doubts. In the light-filled hall, the guy brings up their recent talk about things going south, and the girl answers, flustered. Lucilia, embarrassed and wary, turns away when it's mentioned that the prince is better off knowing the real deal. The young man in his dress uniform, surrounded by blue roses, says goodbye with a cold, determined look in his eyes. In the opulent hall, the door bursts open with a crash, shattering the peace and quiet. The silver-haired man, stunned by the unexpected reveal, wonders how a sellsword knight turned out to be a prince of the Pacha Empire. In the spacious hall, the guy turns to the girl, surprised and not believing she didn't know about his true identity. Lucilia, apologizing and anxious, insists she wouldn't have betrayed Norton if she'd known the truth. This silver-haired dude's flashing back to the bloodbath for the Pacha Empire throne. You can see the stress etched all over his face. Lucilia, chilling on a couch in some fancy room, is grilling him about the uprising and the first prince getting offed. She's clearly worried sick. Then this figure in a green cloak pops up against some purple designs. Talk about ditching south and going into hiding up north. Smells like trouble. The silver-haired kid forces a smile, realizing that the third prince is one tough son of a gun, even after everything. This armored warrior standing tall with his sword, dark banners behind him. Someone tried to take him out, but no dice. This fight's just getting started. In a bright hall, this guy whips around, totally thrown off by the request to meet with Norton. He's like, huh? Lucilia, even though she's freaked out, ain't gonna sit still. She's gonna do things her way. A fire lights up in her eyes as she realizes she needs to rekindle Norton's feelings for her. She's plotting to melt the guy's heart so he doesn't mess with her plans. The silver-haired kid just sighs and facepalms. Lucilia begs him to chill out and not do anything stupid. You can hear the desperation in her voice. In her mind, she's sure that if she can just calm Norton down, he'll do anything for her. Because he loves her. She can't imagine any other outcome than being with her darling, and she smiles at him, full of hope. The guy in the fancy uniform is wondering if anyone would ever let a woman who ran off with him and had his kid marry someone else, especially the emperor. Lucilia, all chibi-fied with puffed-out cheeks, decides she doesn't have to spill all her secrets, choosing to keep her thoughts to herself for now. The guy's gaze turns thoughtful as he cooks up a scheme to set someone up with Zelda. The silver-haired dude is waiting for him to continue, looking slightly puzzled and a little on guard. Lucilia, grinning slyly, decides it's time to trash the Empress's reputation. The guy with the cold expression notes to himself that everything is going exactly as planned. Lucilia, standing in front of the mirror, still can't quite process what just happened. The guy, watching his feet, wonders if he should tell her the truth now, and carefully asks Lisi a question. Cecilia turns around, looking wary, when asked what she'll do if she can't win Linnell's heart. The man, face like ice, admits to himself that outcome is a no-go. She decides if she doesn't become Empress, she'll head to the Pacha Empire with Norton and become a prince's wife. The girl dreams of a future where Norton's brother becomes emperor and she's an archduchess, a happy smile lighting up her face. The silver-haired man wearily thinks that one way or another, he'll be part of the imperial family, because either Norton or his son could become emperor. Cecilia gently holds the baby, regretting that she didn't want to talk about the little one's accident. With worry and resolve, the girl asks him to give up on Norton, her face showing her inner turmoil. Tension flares between Cecilia and her brother as she exclaims, not understanding what he means. The man, clutching the fabric, acknowledges that a miracle happened and someone survived, though he doesn't know why. Cecilia, fear in her eyes, wonders if someone will want to get back at her, her face filled with dread and uncertainty. This girl's stuck thinking, is it better to marry a prince who wants you dead or become the Empress? Over the clashing steel and spilled blood, the order comes down. Take out Norton and the kid. No one can get in the way, or they're both toast. This silver-haired dude's dead set on finding out the truth, and you can see the worry etched on his face. We see a baby surrounded by flowers, and the question hangs in the air. Is Ram still alive, and where the heck is he now? He reluctantly agrees to get closer to Norton for intel, but he doubts a baby could survive a fall like that. Lucilia, looking down, quietly says she's all right, but you can hear the exhaustion in her voice. She smirks, already picturing how ticked off Norton's gonna be. The guy in the fancy uniform just casually says, they can always have another kid. The important thing is Norton stays alive. You can see he's worn out. Her nasty attitude and crazy antics are nothing new to him. As she walks away, he's thinking, how can she be so in love with Norton and still want Emperor Linnell so bad? Outside the palace, a quiet night falls, filled with stars and the promise of change. Norton, gazing down thoughtfully, feels like it's all happening again, just like before. In the dimly lit room, two meet, their footsteps echoing on the wooden floor, the air thick with tense anticipation. A judgment echoes in his mind about the utter madness of this whole thing. Lucilia smiles enigmatically, meeting Norton's gaze, joy and excitement sparkling in her eyes. Norton, face tight, exhales heavily in the half-dark room. He turns away, annoyed, his movements sharp and full of resentment. Lucilia looks on in confusion and surprise, not understanding what's going on. Norton's stunned, realizing he just got a little too familiar. A spark ignites between them, and the girl smiles, sensing things are about to get very interesting. Norton overhears the compliment, and despite being surprised, can't hide how stoked he is. The young dude turns around, all confused and pissed, and behind him pops up this girl with pink hair and a chill look. Lucilia, with a slight smile, brings up past stuff, hinting at her habit of ditching out. She's all worried, asking about Rams, but the guy she's talking to isn't sure she's got the right to ask. Lucilia tries to explain, her voice shaking, when she's reminded that she didn't just run, she ordered them tossed off a cliff. In the dark woods, a cloaked dude is bummed, remembering he only just found out today what his brother did. He remembers being told everyone was okay, and his hand freezes among the night flowers. Lucilia's standing among the flowers, regretting what she did back then, and swears to herself she wouldn't have left her people if she'd known what was going to happen. She's crying, saying she left to keep the kids safe, and admits she's super sorry, remembering all the sleepless nights she spent bawling. Norton, the golden-haired guy, frowns and clutches his head, trying to deal with the rush of feels. The girl, fighting back tears, hears she doesn't need to worry about Rams, and lowers her gaze. She gently hugs the child close, feeling the soft cries reach her again. Desperate and anxious, the pink-haired girl begs for an explanation of why she came back. Norton hesitates, still feeling angry, but doubt flickers in his eyes. Lucilia takes a step forward, admitting to herself that seeing Norton made her realize her feelings for him hadn't faded. She confesses she missed him every night, and a tender moment hangs between them. Their lips meet in a soft kiss, filling the air with long-awaited closeness. Locked in each other's arms, they freeze, unable to contain their emotions, and the girl quietly asks him to say something important. She anxiously asks where their Rams is now, her eyes full of hope and love. Lucilia clings to the man, and he says with concern that Rams is near the Imperial Palace. Norton, kinda blushing and sheepish, tells her not to worry about it. The girl's relieved and happy, realizing everything worked out just like she thought it would. She smiles, all happy, snuggling close to her guy and asking him for a hug right then and there. Meanwhile, by the walls of this huge building, someone's hesitantly asking if they're holding it right. In the night courtyard, the girl with the bow admits she's never shot before, 'cause her hands are shaking, and the guy's helping her get the hang of it. Linnell gently adjusts the girl's hand, explaining she needs to lower it a little and pull back the string first. Zelda, smiling and blushing, agrees to give it another shot. The arrow slams into the target, leaving a clean hit. In a funny scene, the guy's cheering the girl on, saying it's her first time, and she happily points out that she hit exactly where she was aiming. Linnell says she did great for her first try, and suggests she give it another go. Zelda widens her stance, following her mentor's advice to improve her balance. Linnell gently corrects her, telling her to keep her eyes on the target and not tilt her head up. Memories flood back to when she was 13 and first held a bow. Linnell calls her name, and she turns to him, surprised. He comments that she usually wears dresses, but she looks especially good in her riding outfit today. Zelda blushes as he talks about riding with her until they're both completely spent. In a funny moment, she awkwardly asks why he's saying these things, and he just calmly tells her to keep practicing. Linnell leans in close, their eyes lock, and she freezes, feeling her heart race. Tenderness and longing shine in her eyes, and she silently begs for his affection. In the dim light of the room, their figures blend into a kiss, casting a warm shadow on the wall. Linnell, unable to contain himself, pulls her close, his voice trembling with emotion. Zelda's taken aback by his honesty, as he admits he can't control his feelings when he's near her. He apologizes in advance for his intensity, kissing her again, and she responds with a happy smile. In the dim light, the man gently touches the girl's lips, and her voice trembles with excitement. Suddenly, the door bursts open, and a knight indignantly accuses the Emperor of conduct unbecoming. The couple turns around, flustered by the noise, realizing they've been caught red-handed. Zelda thinks to herself in despair that she didn't want to be caught in this kind of situation, especially with Commander Macrome. The Emperor, annoyed, demands to know why the knight barged in without knocking, wondering where the guards are. Zelda lowers her head, realizing her secret is out, and Linnell is definitely going to find out everything. The knight in shining armor, with outrage and hurt on his face, rebukes the emperor for his inappropriate behavior with Her Majesty. The girl's totally caught off guard, a little embarrassed, just watching this whole crazy thing unfold. She doesn't even know how to react. Zelda's jaw drops. She covers her mouth like, "Whoa!" She's just realizing they think she's someone else. Linnell's got this serious look on his face, totally confused by what he's hearing. He's starting to think this guy's had a few too many. The knight's fuming, accusing the other guy of being hammered, ranting about it, and saying how bad he feels for the Empress. Linnell chuckles, admitting he feels bad for the Empress too. But he just couldn't help himself, which makes the girl blush. The girl's face is red, and she's lost in thought, trying to figure out what to even say right now. The knight's going off, saying the other guy's up to no good, and Linnell just smirks, admitting he's a bit off, calling himself a real nutcase. The knight throws his hands over his face, freaking out about how the Empress is going to react when she finds out the truth. Linnell, with a slight smile and a blush, calmly says that the Empress already knows what's going on. The knight's panicked, saying he heard nothing, and scrambles to leave, telling everyone else to get back to the Empress. Linnell turns and locks eyes with the girl, who's staring at him, totally surprised. A hand slowly reaches out, like it's inviting him to take the next step. The guy suggests they continue this chat in her room, offering his hand, and she, a little flustered, takes him up on it. Zelda's got this soft smile and a blush on her cheeks, practically glowing against the flowers, feeling like a queen. Rosie's all worried, warning everyone to stay inside, no matter what. She's laying down the law for the little dragon, saying if anyone sees him, it could be really bad news. The little dragon's confused, asking if it's just because he's not human. Rosie clarifies that it's because he's a wyvern, reminding him about the wars between the continents and the wyverns. She explains that a wyvern showing up at a tournament that's supposed to be about peace and harmony would cause issues. The little wyvern just stares at her, all confused, while she frowns, thoughtfully holding a bun. This wyvern, surrounded by a glow, looks valuable, but having her around could start a war. The wyvern sadly admits what's obvious, remembering how the girl's mom hid her in the study. The girl with the golden eyes says confidently that her mom, being a healing mage, would never use a wyvern for war. The girl wishes Her Majesty could accept the wyvern, but doesn't know how to bring it up. She's confused, wondering how to explain to the Empress that she ended up with a 300-year-old wyvern after her visit. The little wyvern, looking thoughtful, realizes the only way to figure this out is by decoding the book. The girl sadly looks at the egg among the books, wishing she could learn its story from her mom. The Empress in the red cloak appears as a legendary wyvern master, able to control these creatures. The wyvern admits with relief that she got scared and almost hid back in the egg, while the girl watches her, surprised. The wyvern, with a sly smile, realizes she can't show herself in her true form. Rosie's watching all this go down, looking confused and a little suspicious, trying to figure out what's really going on. The girl's about to wash up, tells the wyvern to scoot under the bed and stay out of her hair. This little wyvern's totally stoked, realizing even a badass wyvern can take orders from humans. The wyvern's got this sly look, thinking it can totally find its owner without any help from anyone. The happy wyvern bolts off into the night, dreaming of getting a name from its future owner. The wyvern knows it's got to stay hidden from people, or things could get real messy. Realizing a wyvern just showing up would cause a total freakout, they decide they need a different look to move around. The little wyvern's eyes light up, decides the chosen method will work just fine. It zooms out of the building, ready to grab this chance to meet its owner. The girl whips around, surprised, feeling like something weird just happened. A sudden surge of magic washes over the girl, making her shield her eyes from the bright flash. The girl with crimson eyes finds herself transformed, inheriting someone else's power. It's a power that lets her borrow someone's body, whether it's a person or an animal. The girl with crimson eyes and a sly smile thinks about the wyvern's abilities, happy that Rosie suspects nothing. She goes out at night with a laundry basket and is surprised to find herself somewhere other than Rosie's palace. In the stillness of the night, someone from the balcony admits they've been waiting a long time for this meeting. The mysterious voice promises to be close all night. Then there's laughter and talk of fooling around. Behind the curtain, the silhouettes of two people are barely visible as they get unexpectedly intimate. The girl watches what's happening with surprise and wonders why people are so passionate with each other's lips. Two people, surrounded by flowers and tenderness, Get so close, it's like they're sharing the very breath from each other's lips. The guy with the silver hair is looking around, real suspicious. Those two are by the window, and they just spotted someone in the tree. They look totally surprised. The dude in the black shirt is clutching his chest, wondering if it's a spy or some kind of hitman. He's staring at the figure outside, thinking a killer wouldn't just chill like that. And that outfit? It looks familiar. Suddenly, it hits him. It's the maid up in that tree. What the heck is she doing? The girl with the red eyes and that weird smile is staring straight ahead. She looks dangerous and confident. Silver hair raises his eyebrows, totally thrown off by that random question about taste. He's racking his brain, trying to remember if he ate everything and who got more. He's completely lost. He's trying to figure out why his lips are moving, but no sound is coming out. Did he choke on something? The girl asks him what's wrong, and he just looks totally confused. There's nobody on the branch, which begs the question, where the heck did she vanish to? He's stunned that the girl just disappeared into thin air, like, no way that's even possible. The silver-haired dude spins around. You can see the worry and frustration all over his face. A guy with long red hair walks in, decked out in formal wear, and addresses him respectfully. The man points to the window, saying that just a minute ago, a maid with braids was sitting in that tree, spying on him. The servant's surprised, asking if a maid really climbed all the way up there just to snoop around. There's an overturned basket with some cloth spilling out on the grass near the tree, which is kinda sus. The servant orders them to grab that cheeky girl ASAP. Don't let her get away. He's sure she won't dare come back to the palace after this. The man figures the maid probably ran to the main palace. He's wondering if it's even worth dragging her back. He confidently promises to be right back, then strides quickly out of the room. He hesitated, wondering if he should off the girl, but decided just sending her away was enough. The guy tells her not to make things harder or say anything she shouldn't, his face turning serious. He gently pulls her close, suggesting they pick up where they left off, and she shyly agrees. Suddenly, someone kicks the other away, breaking them apart. Smiling shyly and blushing, the girl confesses her loyalty to the prince, and he holds her close. Even being the emperor's concubine doesn't seem that important to her right now. Just then, another girl in a cloak steps into the garden, trying to hide her face. She presses her hand to her cheek, feeling the heat and embarrassment, her breathing getting shallow. She hasn't felt this hot since taking that magic potion, and her cheeks flush red. She decides she needs to get rid of the fever before Lionel wakes up and heads into the night, filled with worry. The girl, cheeks flushed, turns around, hearing something unexpected behind her. A white cat with bright eyes appears before her, staring intently. She picks up the cat, surprised by its sudden appearance. The girl hugs the cat, a mix of surprise and slight nervousness, not understanding what's happening. The cat snuggles comfortably against her chest, and a strange, warm feeling stirs within her. It's like an unknown power is awakening inside her, raging like a fire. Zelda, with long blonde hair, cautiously turns around, hearing a sound in the night silence. In the garden under the starry sky, she notices two figures approaching from different sides, wondering if they're guards, but realizes one of them definitely isn't a soldier. Zelda carefully steps out from behind cover, holding the white cat close, and watches what's happening. Suddenly, she's overcome with tenderness as she looks at the cat, and her heart fills with warmth. Zelda's totally caught off guard, never expecting to run into such a cutie at a time like this. Meanwhile, back in the shadows, a couple of other guys are trying to figure out what's going down at the Empress's palace so late. Those two in the garden are talking, but you can tell there's no real connection between them. The guy and the maid split up, each lost in their own head. In the dark, the guy's hand tightens on a dagger hilt with a crest. The metal glints with bad intentions. The night sky lights up with flashes, and a flock of birds takes off from the trees, sensing something awful's about to happen. Zelda's red eyes are wide with fear as she watches this go down, her face flushed with worry. She's freaked out realizing the maid might be gone, and she has no clue why. Zelda's eyes go wide, realizing the danger's closing in from behind too. She's panicking, trying to figure out when this stranger got so damn close. In a flash, a hand clamped over her mouth, belonging to a guy in a black cloak, and she was trapped in his arms, clutching her cat. Deep in the dark woods, the cloaked man held the girl tight, hand over her mouth, while she fearfully gripped the white cat. The man carefully pulled his hand away from the girl's face. Once the coast seemed clear, Zelda looked at her rescuer with relief and surprise. still holding the cat close. The cloaked man, with a slight smile, turned out to be Prince Norton, his identity suddenly revealed. A maid lay on the ground, covered in blood, a knife nearby, and a disturbing question hung in the air about what had happened. Zelda, cat in arms, listened intently as the man speculated that the murder was done cleanly, leaving no trace to avoid suspicion. Under the starry sky, the girl stated firmly that she'd keep the sword, and she got the okay. Prince Norton appeared in the garden with a serious expression, his presence causing surprise. He explained he was there by chance, after spotting a maid running. Zelda says she's been keeping an eye on Prince Teslar's knight, the one who was chasing that maid. We see Lord Ken, Prince Teslar's escort knight, with a sword in his hand and a stone-cold look. So why's the prince's bodyguard chasing a concubine's maid? Prince Norton's totally lost. Zelda's worried the maid might have seen something important, and you can see the concern on her face. The word on the street is Prince Teslar's got a spy, and the suspicion is the maid blew his cover. The girl's face shows annoyance and exhaustion as she mentally scolds everyone for being so clumsy. The young man asks, all tense, where they saw this suspicious knight, waiting for an answer. In the dead of night, we see a remote corner of the palace with a huge willow tree, where they're racking their brains to remember what happened. With dark roses in the background, the girl with the mask in her hand makes you wonder if she's the spy. The girl realizes, with a jolt, that she's in the Fessellini Palace, part of the Asto Marquisate. So, in the shadows, they're whispering about the knight of Prince Teslar offing some handmaiden of a concubine. Fishy, right? Zelda's thinking the maid's death wasn't about hooking up with the prince, but something else. Maybe she was covering for a spy. Under the stars, they figure if Prince Teslar was secretly seeing the concubine, the maid might have been silenced to kill the rumors. The big question is, how did Prince Teslar even meet Emperor Raytheon's concubine? And a white cat's just watching the whole thing go down. Then, bam! A redhead pops out of the bushes, saying she's got a hunch. Zelda and the white cat spin around, on high alert, recognizing a face in the dark. Norton steps up, shielding his companion, giving the stranger the stink eye. Rosie, all flustered, introduces herself as Rosie Adelia, another concubine, and bows. The guy asks what she overheard, and Rosie swears she knows everything, but promises to keep her mouth shut. Rosie gushes that she's super devoted to Her Majesty, totally catching them off guard. The girl with the cat's grinning, but the guy's still kinda thrown by what's going on. Rosie gives a shy smile when they ask her what she's doing in the garden at night. Zelda, with the white cat, explains she was looking for her little buddy, who she's been secretly raising in her room. She admits she was worried about the fallout if anyone else saw her unusual cat. Rosie says she decided to look for her pet herself, which is why she's here. The girl pets the cat's head, thinking that it must have been tough for the animal to be stuck in the bedroom all the time. Turns out, surprisingly, the cat hatched from an egg right in the bedroom, leaving everyone confused and cracking up. Zelda, with the white hair, smiles awkwardly, realizing her joke bombed, and the cat in her arms looks pretty ticked off. The consort remembers wanting to talk about Prince Teslar and Fessellini meeting, and she starts explaining, all worked up. With gold and coins in the background, we learn that the Astu March is a major player in the business world. Memories flood back to childhood, when Fessellini often visited the Châtenel royal family. The young man worries. If all this is true, it means they've been close for a long time. Zelda, with her long blonde hair, warns that if His Majesty wakes up, things could get messy. Norton sadly realizes he can't help the dead maid now, and decides to watch what happens when the body's found. The girl smiles, petting the white cat, and says it's time for him to go back to his owner. The cat resists, annoyed, and the girl laughs, watching his reaction. Against a backdrop of flowers, the cat is asked to go home quietly, and he meows weakly in response. The girl asks the prince to escort Rosie, while in the background, the cat continues to protest in another girl's arms. The prince respectfully agrees to the request, pressing his hand to his chest. Zelda, with her long blonde hair, cautiously returns to the bedroom, lifting the covers and trying not to make a sound. She freezes, hearing someone call her name, and a look of embarrassment crosses her face. Zelda awkwardly sits on the bed, feeling a slight ache and surprised by the unexpected encounter. In the dim light, she runs into Linnell, who takes her hand and asks where she's been. Zelda cuddles up to him, and he admits he's been feeling the chill without her around. She notices he's awake, and her heart starts racing as he gently pulls her close. Linnell looks at her with warmth in his eyes, admitting he feels warm again with her. They hug, laugh, and enjoy being close, forgetting about everything else. Zelda laughs, not hiding her happiness and lightheartedness in that moment. It's quiet outside, but the room is filled with trust and comfort. She looks at him tenderly, admitting to herself how much she wants to be with him. Linnell stares off, deep in thought, wondering if he should grant someone's wish. The girl's gentle smile and sparkling eyes practically light up the room. The Emperor, just waking up, reaches for her, promising her a kiss. He looks at her, surprised and a little flustered, not believing what's happening. Zelda smiles mysteriously and confidently, her lips trembling with anticipation. The morning air is filled with tenderness as she gives him a kiss, soft light spilling through the window. At night, a starry sky stretched over the luxurious mansion, shrouding everything in silence. Rosie holds the cat with trembling hands, unable to hide her anxiety. She glares at the pet, bewildered and annoyed, not understanding how it could have slipped away while she was distracted. The little dragon scolds her angrily, thinking she could have gotten his owner faster. Rosie's furious, accusing the dragon of killing that innocent maid, totally losing it. Hearing that, the dragon, all hurt and annoyed, calls her a moron. The little dragon, bummed out, admits it was his fault, looking down and sighing hard. The dragon's floating there, surprised, while the redhead's holding a white cat, lost in thought. Rosie, scared but relieved, hugs the cat tight, feeling her heart pounding like crazy. A book opens up in a golden glow, the one where she just figured something big out while decoding that manuscript. The dragon explains he just happened to notice the special connection between her and the cat, and it totally caught him off guard. She remembers how she lost sight of the dragon in the rush and had to chase after the maid into the dark woods. The girl happily recalls realizing that the cat in Her Majesty's arms was actually him. The concubine admits, surprised, that she's having a hard time believing the little dragon's true form. This dragon's acting all high and mighty, demanding we use his name, or else he'll torch the redhead. Rosie's all curious, asking if he finally got a name and what he's calling himself now. The dragon remembers the first thing his mistress said when they met, and that became his name. Zelda, with her pink eyes, turns around, remembering the question that started the dragon's new life. The little dragon, eyes shining, happily announces that his name is Tia now. The girl's surprised by the name, but the dragon enthusiastically confirms that's what Her Majesty called him. She sighs, agreeing to call him whatever he wants at this point. Rosie admits she can't get rid of either the dragon or the cat, not with the Empress herself potentially dropping by. Under the starry night, someone decides to bail on the group to avoid any complications. A young guy in a green cloak steps out of the shadows, making a sudden entrance. That dude in the green cloak is still super grateful for how she protected Her Majesty that one time. The girl, kinda flustered, says she was just doing her job. Norton says goodbye, promising to catch up again if he gets the chance. Rosie's a little bummed, wondering when she'll see him again. In the dead of night, Prince Norton shows up, greeting the other guy. The prince, looking serious, confirms that everything's going down just like they said it would. In some fancy hall, two guys are talking about how the princess is moving faster than they thought, and one asks what's up with Rams. The other guy smirks and says he just mentioned Rams was getting close to the palace, adding that it's a good thing they moved him somewhere safe. The first guy thanks him for the help and promises to return the favor. Their glasses clink together. Norton, looking thoughtful, starts a new topic, mentioning he's got something he wants to bring up. The guy with the drink in his hand is caught off guard when someone asks about the scar on his face. The gray-eyed dude in the fancy uniform holds out a symbol, saying it's a greeting from His Highness. The glass shatters, and the story keeps going about a mercenary everyone thought was dead, but he's back as a prince of the Pashta Empire, which is blowing everyone's minds. Scarface wants to know if there were any whispers about that particular day. Norton's like, "You mean the day the princess went behind your back and ran off with the royal knights?" Letitia admits she only found out about her brother's actions today and swears she wouldn't have left him if she knew what was going to happen. Tears welling up, she explains she left for the kids' sake, says she's sorry, and remembers all the sleepless nights she spent crying. In each other's arms, the girl and the guy realize how they feel, surrounded by flowers and tenderness. The pink-haired girl smiles, her eyes full of affection and light. The blonde with wine on his lips smirks, claiming the princess was in the dark about the whole thing. The hand holding the glass freezes, doubt and a lack of faith hang in the air. The scarred man stares at him, shocked, barely believing what he's hearing. Norton worries, wondering if his friend is having second thoughts. The man grips his glass, deciding he'll have to start the game all over again. The man with the wine thinks that until Princess Lucilia personally pushes the prince over the edge, nothing will change. A nagging feeling says you can't completely trust Prince Norton's thirst for revenge. Slippers shuffle quietly across the rug, signaling someone's about to show up. Zelda, wrapped in a robe, looks at herself in the mirror next to a bouquet of red roses. Totally surprised, she leans towards the flowers, touching them gently, like she's trying to figure out what they mean. Sitting on the bed with the roses, she's puzzled, wondering why she got them. Linnell smiles warmly, remembering his recent walk in the garden and noticing the roses in bloom. Zelda, with long blonde hair, holds a lush bouquet of scarlet roses, looking surprised. She inhales the flowers' fragrance, noting their pleasant scent, and savors the moment. Touching the petals, she thoughtfully wonders if this is what happiness truly feels like. Suddenly, her eyes widen in surprise as something unexpected happens. One of the roses in the bouquet abruptly changes color to white, leaving the girl bewildered. In a lavish room, Zelda sits at a vanity with the bouquet of roses when she's addressed respectfully. She turns and anxiously brings up the agreement they made. Prince Tesler appears in the doorway, his arrival causing surprise. In another room, a girl with red hair lies on a couch with a book, a black cat sleeping in a basket nearby. She looks up from her book, surprised to see something familiar again. On the pages, she sees a picture of a sword and wonders what it means. Rosie thinks the sword in these old books about wyverns from the south might be connected, even though it doesn't look like much. Melanie, holding a basket, happily announces they're going on a picnic. Rosie's surprised by the sudden suggestion, but agrees since the weather's perfect. She explains she wanted to have a picnic for the Emperor's arrival, but he never showed. Her friend's surprised at the timing. Rosie mentions the Emperor's supposed to be a hottie, but no one beats their own ruler, in her opinion. Melanie, with a sly smile, points out one hottie already came over from another country. The two girls are brought closer by the unexpected encounter, one flustered and surprised by the other's sudden appearance. The girls chat sweetly, and one happily agrees to lend the book for a daytime nap. They head out to the garden, one of the girls carrying a picnic basket, the other thoughtfully holding a book. In the sunny park, surrounded by greenery and flowers, they remark on the beautiful weather and decide to find a spot to relax and eat. One of the girls is surprised how fast the time flew by and notes it with a touch of sadness. The second girl agrees it's been a journey and starts looking for a good picnic spot by the water. Melanie turns around, surprised, noticing something out of the ordinary. There, on the lawn by the lake, surrounded by snacks, sits the pink-haired princess, and her presence is immediately recognizable. The princess, with a slight smirk, remarks that the concubines have decided to have a picnic. She adds with a smile that it's not really a shock, considering things haven't exactly progressed as expected between them and the prince. The two girls stand side by side with wary faces, holding their books and exchanging silent glances. One of the girls, clutching her book, looks lost and tense, while the other turns away with a cold expression. Rosie, turning away, embarrassed, locks eyes with a surprised maid against a backdrop of green trees. Melanie smiles, inviting her to join the picnic, and takes a bite of a sandwich, savoring the moment. Lanisha, filled with outrage and worry, thinks about how weird this whole thing is. Melanie, still munching, turns to someone, looking serious. The Princess of Chatonal, with a radiant smile and proud posture, is pissed that a concubine dared to ignore her. The princess stares, shocked, at the dark-haired woman calmly eating a sandwich and calling herself Emperor Raphion's concubine. The princess repeats the word concubine to herself in disbelief, totally thrown. Annoyed and irritated, the princess thinks Raphion's empress hasn't laid down the law, while the concubine just keeps eating like nothing's wrong. The princess, unable to hide her surprise, blurts out a startled noise. The dark-haired girl sharply corrects the princess, reminding her to say Her Majesty, not just Empress Raphion. The princess, totally ticked off, glares at him, telling him to cut the crap. She clenches her fists, not hiding her annoyance, and calls him out for being so bold. Her eyes widen in surprise when things suddenly take a turn. Out of nowhere, a young dude catches her, and she stares at him, stunned. The guy lays down the law about how to treat people, and the maid just watches, totally lost. Rosie recognizes her savior as Prince Norton, and she's completely thrown off. The concubine, holding a book, awkwardly says someone's acting different than this morning. She blushes and hides her face, surprised she's so shy, while a dark-haired girl stands nearby, looking serious. The flustered girl realizes they were talking about her and asks, confused, "Wait, what are you talking about?" Suddenly, a young man appears in front of her, and they both stare at each other, totally embarrassed. The girl's being hugged by her friend, and in the background, the pink-haired maid's just staring, totally confused. The pink-haired princess is looking on with a little annoyance and suspicion, like, "What the heck is going on?" Melanie, hiding her mouth behind a book, is sharing her thoughts, all surprised, and her redhead friends giving her a questioning look. Licinia, with a thoughtful smile, is thinking she really ought to comfort her highness. Melanie, all respectful, asks the princess if she's met Lady Catherine yet. Rosie, annoyed, corrects her friend, explaining the princess's name is Licilia, not Sukilia. And Melanie's like, "Whoops, my bad." The redhead girl and the blonde guy both freak out, surprised by the sudden shark scare. The pink-haired girl smirks, doubting there could be a shark in the Emperor's lake, and the other girls all flustered answering. The princess smiles, promising all the sharks have been caught, and her friends are just standing there, confused and surprised. Rosie, looking tired, is wondering what this weird conversation is even about. She's feeling even more drained than usual, so she decides to just chill with a book while this young dude hangs out nearby. Norton watches her, intrigued, his eyes locking on. Flipping open the book, she notices it's written in some ancient language and asks if anyone can actually read it. Norton carefully takes the book, admitting he knows a little, and starts to read. The golden-haired guy is taken aback, asking about the Sword of Manifestation, while the redhead next to him looks worried. Zelda's lost in thought at her vanity, not even noticing when a super expensive vase takes a dive and shatters on the floor. Her hand confidently scribes lines on paper in mysterious symbols, the quill gliding across the page in the silent room. The silver-haired guy smirks, musing that even the ice-cold Emperor is starting to fall for her. Zelda's surprised to realize she accidentally poured some seriously pricey magic potion into a vase because she was spacing out, and she's bummed to lose it. She gives a small, knowing smile, looking down, a hint of annoyance in her movements. The delicate hand clutching that expensive bottle trembled with loss and resentment. Zelda, her face etched with worry, remembered she had one more vial, trying to keep her cool. Heels clicked on the floor, and the unspoken fear of being rejected because of the scar hung heavy in the air. The man approached with a chilling smile, holding a bottle, and asked a painful question about love and acceptance. The bottle slipped from her grasp, hitting the floor with a thud and shattering. In the shards of glass, the girl saw her bewildered face, the bitter truth echoing in her mind. People choose those they find appealing. A cold glove settled on her shoulder, and she felt a knot of tension tighten inside, knowing he wasn't there for small talk. The man leaned closer, a frosty smile playing on his lips, and the girl, flustered, heard him speak her name. In the darkness, a confession of longing echoed, and a sharp object appeared in his hand, ready for what came next. The name Zelda von Trova appeared on the paper, leaving behind traces of blood and a silent, heavy tension. Zelda clutches the letter, a fire of determination and rage burning inside her, leaving no room for forgiveness. She makes a firm decision that she won't take it anymore, crushing the envelope in her trembling hands. The elegant, sealed envelope hides a secret message, and the morning starts with a flashback of Prince Teslar's visit to her chambers. The prince accuses her of trying to steal the Empress's throne, leaving behind a stack of letters. The gift she received was just the beginning of a series of events filled with secrets and danger. Now, the prince is using some serious leverage against her with a magic potion, holding the letter and a cold determination. Maybe he expected a different reaction from the Emperor, but all she shows is worry and surprise. As a result, some crazy stuff goes down, and the maid gets dragged into a whirlwind of dangerous events. There's only one jar of the magic potion left, and in 2 weeks the effect wears off. Time is running out fast. Zelda realizes with dread that the honored guests are going to see her scars. She's hitting up the Archduke, asking him to score her some magic potion. She's also digging for intel on the dude who sent her that mysterious gift. The Empress swears she'll back the person she cares about, no matter what. The Archduke's blown away by what he's hearing. He's totally shocked and confused. The dude in the fancy uniform's reading a letter, thinking about an alliance that could flip the whole game. The palace is walking on eggshells, If that scar shows up on the Empress, it's game over for her. You could cut the tension between them with a knife. It's all anxiety and mixed signals. The guy smirks a little, figuring the Empress getting a scar ain't the end of the world. But it's still a problem. It's too early to make any big moves. Things are just simmering for now. Out of nowhere, a crazy incident throws everything off balance, bringing a whole new level of danger. Inside the opulent hall, they're hashing out a maid's murder, a spy's exposure, and the messy fallout for the Empress's court. Out in the garden, a knight named Rolf gets his orders with a snap of the fingers and gears up for action. A guy in full dress uniform is tasking someone to find Mr. Big and wants a magic potion cooked up ASAP. Rolf's scratching his head, wondering why this mission has to go down at night and not right now. Gloved hands guy keeps scribbling away, explaining he's got another, more pressing matter to deal with. A list of wagons arriving from Châtenel pops up among the documents. Could be the key to cracking this whole thing. In a dark room, surrounded by crates, a girl in a cloak is clutching her knees, a red box beside her, and some miss is on her mind. The guy in the dress uniform is smirking, his lips oozing confidence and a hint of something else. Against a backdrop of fancy flowers and blue light, an envelope with a seal appears, because the faster you get an answer, the better. Meanwhile, back at the Empress's palace, everything's calm and majestic, but underneath, things are seriously tense. This chick with the pink hair is stomping across this baller rug, all fired up and ready to throw down. You can see the rage burning in her eyes. She can't believe these concubines are stepping to a princess. Zelda's catching all the blame for this mess with the concubines, 'cause she can't keep them in line. She was supposed to clear the way, like a replacement should. But instead, she's getting cocky, 'cause the Emperor gave her a little attention. And now, the Emperor's getting dragged into all this drama too. The princess is pissed. She's definitely not feeling this situation. The maid's freaking out because everything's going sideways. The girl's shocked to find out Her Majesty isn't here, and now she's totally lost. The princess is all, me and Zelda are tight, and barges in, maid's surprise be damned. She stops in front of the fancy doors, ready to face whatever's on the other side. Her eyes scan the lavish room, and she thought with a twinge of envy that Zelda got to live like this. The princess sensed something was off, and cautiously tuned in to her instincts. A gorgeous dress caught her eye, and she was surprised it belonged to Zelda. She wondered if that dress even suited Zelda, picturing how she would look wearing it. The pink-haired girl smiled, a spark igniting in her eyes. She turned amidst the roses and light, suddenly recognizing the familiar dress. A voice inside her told her that the room, the dress, even the Empress's position suited her better than Zelda. Surprise and a hint of confusion flickered across the girl's face. A white-gloved hand gently touched the bed, as if searching for something important. Standing next to the man, the girl felt a surge of emotion, thinking about Zelda spending the night with the Emperor in that very bed. Zelda, face like stone, says Lucilia's name, her eyes locked on, full of grit and tight nerves. She snaps, reminding her that she should have waited in the damn parlor, not snooped around here. The pink-haired chick, sprawled on the bed, just smirks at the hostess getting bent out of shape about her crashing the bedroom. The blonde, caught off guard, asks about the Emperor's, sleeping habits, trying to get intel. A white glove gently touches a stack of papers, and our girl remembers the real reason she's here. Lucilia leans in close, whispering, asking if the Emperor has, performance issues, making the blonde squirm. Pink hair giggles, whispering that the rumor is he's got something going on down there, which is why he avoids women, and demands to know what went down last night, leaving the blonde totally flustered. Trying to keep her cool, the blonde tells the guest to get the hell out of her room, now. Lucilia reluctantly agrees to leave, remarking that her big bro really seems to dig the room's owner. She admits she tossed that stuff in the blonde's face on purpose, but her brother made the scar vanish like it never happened. Her inner voice echoes the word on purpose, with bitterness, unable to believe what she's hearing. Left alone, she curls up on the bed, remembering how long she's suffered because of this scar. Lucilia, with a cold look on her face, announces that she's hungry and leaves, ordering someone to watch the concubines. Suddenly, she's caught off guard and terrified when another girl ambushes her. Anger flares in the blonde's eyes, and she mentally rips into her rival for being so shameless. Zelda, face like ice, suddenly grabs the pink-haired girl by the head, ignoring her struggles. Lucilia, teeth clenched in anger and fear, screams, her eyes filled with despair and rage. The heroine's inner voice sounds like an admission of her own crazy ruthlessness, and the tension hits a breaking point. Zelda looks down, her gaze full of resolve and cold confidence. Lucilia desperately tries to break free, her feet slipping on the floor, her voice trembling with fear. Zelda hesitates for a second, knowing she should back down, but she's too caught up to let it go. A fire lights in the blonde's eyes, and she's done holding back. The princess, wincing in pain, glares at her rival, not believing how strong she is. The black glove tightens on strands of pink hair, a stark reminder of who's in charge. The Empress towers over the princess, making her power and authority crystal clear. Fear and confusion flash in the princess's eyes as the situation hits her. A drop of red slowly slides down the glass, and a thought echoes. Payback can be a dish best served cold. Seizing the moment, Lucilia smiles confidently, feeling like might makes right. She stays sure of herself, even when she suspects she's being played. Zelda smirks, reveling in the fact that her rival is practically helping her get revenge. Anger and shock flash in the pink-haired girl's eyes as the penny drops. Blinded by rage, she lunges at the blonde, accusing her of cruelty and craving revenge. Zelda scoffs, warning that any attack on her will be met with swift justice, and remarks that her rival never learns. In the shadow of the heavy drapes, a black glove rises menacingly, and the promise that there will be no blame sounds like a death sentence. Lucilia, startled and confused, sees a hand rushing towards her. Wide-eyed, she's completely blindsided as she goes down. She whirls around, trying to figure out what the heck just happened, and watches the next move with tense anticipation. Zelda, calmly holding her cup, suddenly senses the shift in the air as the tension hits a boiling point. The princess jumps up, accusing her rival of striking her and threatening payback. But the blonde doesn't even flinch. Lucilia, her face etched with despair and resentment, struggles to understand what she did to deserve this. Zelda flashes a cold smile, playing innocent and clearly loving this. The princess forces a nervous smile, realizing proving her case is going to be tough. It was just the two of them in the room. The black glove sets down the cup real gentle, but you can feel the threat. These accusations could be shut down real quick. Remembering the pink-haired chick trying on the Empress's dress? Yeah, that's fuel for mockery and makes her story sound like BS. Balling her fist, the girl hears they're gonna strip her of her title and dress her like a servant, calling her a spoiled brat. Lucilia, fighting back tears, stares with hurt and accusation, her face burning with shame. She clenches her fists, promising herself she'll get payback for this humiliation. She won't let it slide. The Empress, sitting on her throne, says with cold resolve that now they both have scores to settle. The black glove brushes lightly against the pink hair, and the message is clear. Get out, now. Zelda leans in close to her rival, warning her that revenge is coming, and it's gonna be brutal. Suddenly, the whole vibe shifts as the blonde turns to the newcomer, with a smile, apologizing for the ruckus. The smiling maid says, relieved, that she shooed everyone else away when the princess showed up, so nobody heard a thing. All casual, the maid assures her that even if someone had heard, they'd be on her side anyway, 'cause everyone hates that princess. The maid thoughtfully offers to grab some refreshing juice to help her chill after that nasty conversation. Zelda, now alone, wonders if Lucilia is really that dumb, or just playing it up, 'cause it's pretty clever to act that naive. In a quick exchange, the mistress and maid lock eyes, not quite seeing eye to eye. Zelda waves it off with a small smile, saying she's fine, and is surprised the words didn't come from Sharon, her usual maid. In the dim light, the girl with golden hair freezes, realizing something weird is going down. She presses a hand to her chest, trying to pinpoint the source of the strange voice. A feeling washes over her, like she's heard that voice before. The next day, a fancy carriage rolls up to the misty road bordering the Raffion Empire. Evening falls, and under a sky full of stars, a massive castle looms out of the forest as the guests start arriving. A guy in a dress uniform notes that they're here earlier than expected. A stone-faced dude reports that the Pacha and Delroy empires have already arrived, and all the host countries are expected today. A white-haired guy with a thoughtful smile asks for more details about the Pacha Empire's arrival. In a dark flashback, we see the second prince, Kelvin Asselman, haunted by some seriously messed up memories. Princess Jesper, anxious but dignified, preps for the big event, knowing she has to be there. Carriage wheels rumble on the cobblestones as they talk about how the wedding and succession ceremony are still on hold after the first prince's unfortunate passing. A pair of crimson eyes shows calm anticipation as things start to kick off. Bathed in crimson light, a crown and ring lie in blood. A stark reminder that more than just the throne was taken, lives were too. Behind closed doors, as the sun dips, they're saying Emperor Linnell's snagged himself an empress from some big-shot family in Chatanel. Surrounded by golden flowers, this silver-haired dude smirks like, well, didn't see that coming. With the Intercontinental Tournament just around the corner, a banner's unfurled over the map, hinting at some serious stuff going down. Emperor Katria Edens of the Delroy Empire arrives amidst fancy roses and bling, radiating confidence and pure power. Second Prince Kelvin Asselman from the Pacha Empire and Princess Jasper are chilling with white lilies, all about grace and class. Representatives from all these nations are rolling into the Raffian Empire, greeted by blinding lights and a super formal vibe. Emperor Adrian Melton from the Tabello Empires got this sly smile, his silver hair and red eyes popping against the white flowers. On the steps of this massive palace, there's a guy in a dark cloak and a woman in a pink dress, ready to greet the guests for this huge event. With the epic palace in the background, everyone's buzzing about Emperor Adrian from Tabello showing up, and the tension between these rulers is thick enough to cut with a knife. Empress Katria, totally over the formalities, decides to skip greeting the arriving guest and heads back into the palace. That is so low even for him! What a snake! What really gets under my skin is that look on his face, like he's all-knowing, playing God. You know, you can tell a lot about a person just by looking at them. Here comes the fancy ride, and the thought of him reading my mind just pisses me off even more. Wait a minute, I thought he was all about peace. Guess I had him pegged wrong. That squeaky wheel is as phony as his whole peacekeeper act. Seriously? I got you. We're in this together. You can't truly understand peace without love, Zelda. Here we go. And there it is. This dude with long silver hair is straight up gliding through the hall, like he's floating on magic or something. Zelda and Linnell, all dressed up, are chuckling about some joker wasting magic on dumb stuff, and now the kid gets what they meant. On the marble floor, a guy in black boots and a girl in a pink dress meet up, and you can feel this vibe of a long-awaited reunion. The blonde guy, stone-cold expression and all, raises a hand to his chest, like he's trying to keep it together, showing some serious willpower. Silver hair smirking amidst the blue roses, admitting that the curse is still hanging around. The blue-eyed kids thanking them for looking out for him, saying Emperor Adrian hasn't changed a bit. Silver hair and crimson eyes is giving off this mysterious half-smile, hiding what he's really thinking. He gives the girl a little smile, acting surprised that he's face-to-face with Empress Raffian herself. He kisses her hand in greeting, all smooth, saying it's a pleasure to finally meet her. Someone's thinking about how the girl would look in a dress fit for an empress, noticing how graceful and slender she is. Zelda clutches her chest, worried. Is this a hallucination? She's hearing that weird voice again. The silver-haired guy's got his hand on his chest, and it hits her. She's hearing Emperor Adrian's voice. Zelda's staring at him, surprised and tense, while in her head, that voice is smugly assuming she's got a crush. The voice in her head notes that if she weren't Empress Raffian, she'd be taken to Vani Palace, and Zelda's eyes narrow with suspicion. The silver-haired dude, smiling calmly, appears against a backdrop of lilac flowers, wondering what the heck is going on. Zelda bows her head, a little flustered but respectful, showing her manners on meeting him. The guy in the fancy robe welcomes the guest, inviting him inside to chill after his long trip. The guest sounds a little sad as he asks for some time, reminding him about the usual tea ceremony for guests. The silver-haired guy smirks, commenting on how cold Linnell's personality is. Zelda's face is tight as she wonders if the Empress is generous enough to spare time for a guest who's traveled so far. She lowers her gaze and decides it's worth figuring out what kind of guy Emperor Adrian is by inviting him to the table. In a lavish hall, the Emperor, Empress, and their guest gather around a round table for a chat. Emperor Adrian addresses his companions, preparing to start the conversation in this formal setting. Zelda, surprised and a little anxious, asks if he's wearing a thermal magic stone. The silver-haired man replies with a slight smile that he's not wearing a thermal magic stone, and wonders why she asked. Flustered and wary, the girl admits she sensed an unusually hot aura coming from him, unlike other people. Linnell, in a lavish robe, suggests with a smile that it's due to the Empress's passionate love, making the girl blush. The silver-haired guest agrees and remarks that her curse seems to have weakened as well. The girl in the pink dress feels the changes within her with surprise and excitement, her heart pounding. The man with red eyes suddenly feels a strange unease, his gaze becoming wary. The emperor with the silver hair is picking up on some weird vibes from Lionel's aura, and it's got him worried. Zelda's thinking, all suspicious, is it even possible to read people's auras? Her buddy figures this guy's got more going on than anyone realizes. Emperor Adrian, trying to play it cool, waves off the question, hoping he didn't give anything away. A maid walks in with a tray, finally bringing those drinks everyone's been waiting for. A special cocoa drink appears on the table, the famous product of the Tabello Empire, topped with cute marshmallows. The emperor grins, tells everyone to drink their cocoa while it's hot, teasing the ice-cold Emperor Raffian. The emperor and empress are all smiles, swapping cups in a carefree kind of way, just beaming at each other. The girl's inner voice is freaking out, hoping someone slipped something nasty into the emperor's cup. She's thinking the poison will slowly drop his body temperature, leading to a real bad time, freezing to death. Zelda's got this worried look now, just waiting to see how this all plays out.